summer, unlock your potential with our summer workshop. This summer, unlock your potential with our summer workshop. Join our dynamic online courses, designed for everyone aged 13 to 75, starting June 1st through August 3rd with Mbwe Ishongi of the Crypto Woke Financial Sustainability Movement. Dive into financial education for adults or gear up for success with financial education for student athletes. Teens and young adults can build their financial future, and everyone can explore the wonders of STEAM. For just $149.99, you get access and can invite 3 friends or family members to join you or choose their own course. That's for people for one low price. Workshops start June 1st and run through August 3rd. Sign up now and invest in your future.
Welcome to WTF, Ways to Freedom podcast show, where we explore all areas that bring freedom in state of mind, body, and spirit. Sit back, open your mind, and take a journey with your host, Mbwe Ishongi.
Peace, y'all. Blessings to everyone. Greetings. It's good to see you all. Hopefully, today we're not going to have any hiccups. Looking at my streams here, it seems a bit more clearer today, so that's good. Yesterday was, we had some thunderstorms, and so it kind of messed up. My crown is all to the side here. It's all good. But I had some bad weather, so like the internet was really shoddy yesterday, so we were like maybe even a half hour in, and I had to actually cancel the episode because of that. But we're here tonight. We're here to do the redo. That's just what it is. Sometimes, when you are now in the space of streaming live, anything can happen, so you got to be able to adapt. And I thought the best decision was to do justice, especially the topic that we were talking about. It was best to just go ahead and just, close it down for the day yesterday and try to do it again today, which we are doing. So it seems like everything is a lot better. I'm looking at my screens here. It's a lot less choppy as it was. So the quality is back. So I'm happy to hear that and see that. So I'm hoping everyone is well. Today is Thursday, May 16th. Another great day for us to learn, for us to apply what we learn, and to become better at ourselves. That's what it's all about, is us being better, right? If you're the same person you are 5 years ago, then you're not growing. And, trees and weeds, they grow. So if they continue to grow to survive. If you're not growing, then you're not surviving. And so the whole goal here is for us to be our best, at our optimum best. So tonight, we're going to, again, pick up from we're going to start from scratch, basically, with part 2 of Who's the Boulé. And the reason why I felt it was important to talk about this, being that we had just did it last week, we did an introduction, is because May is the month that the Boulé was founded. In fact, yesterday, the episode we were trying to do was on their anniversary date. It was 120th anniversary for them yesterday. It's not to celebrate. It's just to understand that, look, these things have been going on for over a century. And a lot of us don't even know, or we're just now becoming aware of who they are. So May 15th, 1904 was when they were founded. And so we felt it was important, or I felt it was important, to go ahead and do a second part, a more in-depth part to this, because there's things in there that we covered in part 1, but there was a lot more, it's a lot more levels. And so today I'm going to get to some even more subsurface levels that I hope that you find both educational, entertaining, enlightening. And then if you know of anyone that has either pledged or in a society that holds secrets, or if you have nieces, nephews, children going to college, you want to probably have them, either tune in to see this episode or inform them of what you know about this, because there's a flip side of the coin that we've never been exposed to. So as you all are coming in, I give thanks for those that are coming in. You could be doing anything else on a Thursday evening, again, May 16th, 9 p.m. So I give thanks for you taking the time to tune into the WTF Ways of Freedom podcast show. And just if you would do me a favor and help me grow the algorithm of this channel to reach more folks like mine, as soon as you come in, just go ahead and press that like button. If you are on Facebook and or even YouTube, it helps me specifically, especially on YouTube, to help me grow my channel. That is my goal, is to again try to get this information to out as many people as possible expeditiously, using the algorithms. And the reason why I'm doing this is not for gloating, not for me to become this YouTube sensation or whatnot. I'm trying to fill a void of what I see isn't there. I don't see enough conversation out there about some, really deep, in-depth conversations that are going to be uplifting. Not to hate on folks that like to watch gossip and snitching and all that kind of stuff, but for me, it's, I want something that is going to be thought-provoking, something that's going to push me and inspire me to want to do something, get up and do something, basically take action. So with that said, I am your host, Mbwebe Ashangi. I am a financial therapist. I also teach STEAM, and I'm a culture curator. What does that mean? I wear several hats, but all of them are spokes of the same wheel when it comes to my dedication and focus on enlightening and learning of and for African people of descent, people of descent from Africa, whether you live in the Caribbean, in the Americas, or even in Europe. Our story has been camouflaged, whitewashed, dosed with all other types of things to dumb it down, if not try to eliminate it in its entirety. And I decided I want to be a vanguard of our story. If we don't step up, who will? And just as the historians that we give homage to, our George D. and James, our Chancellor Williams, our John G. Jacksons, our John Henry Clarks, our Dr. Benz, our Francis Cress Welsings, our Ishak Kamusa Barashango, Adele Jones, Malimu Baruti, he's alive, Anthony Browder. These are historians, Asa Hilliard, that have put out information for us to carry into this generation. Had they not done those works, we would be what my Baba Jegna, Anthony Browder, calls, we would have still going through a transition 13. A transition 13 is when you basically forget that you forgot. And that's what a lot of us are still in this space of. We forgot that we've forgotten who we are. And we're in this search of trying to find ourselves. And the unfortunate thing is that others are aware of that. So they're trying to create detours to say, no, go left instead of right. Boulé being one of them, to make you be further away from yourself, the furthest away from yourself, so that they can continue to manipulate you. So we are in those days where it's important that we get into that, as far as finding out ways to pick up the mantle. Soon the elders that I pay homage to that are still with us now, they will be transitioning on. And if they're not here, how else will the information be passed on if I don't do it, or people like us don't do it? And I'm hoping that I inspire younger generations under me to do the same thing, that the information that you may be learned tonight or in other spaces, that you take that information and you put it in whatever tongue that makes you feel comfortable with it, because we don't want to just regurgitate. We want to do our research and diligence to back up what we're saying, but also be that vocal piece to get that information out to the next generation. If not, we're going to go through what, again, is called a transition 13, where we forget that we forgot, and then we forgot that we've forgotten. And that is to the aid of global white dependency. So before I get into tonight's topic, I usually do a rundown of what this is for those first coming in, first time seeing this episode or seeing an episode of WTF. We know WTF also goes for what the fuck, right? And we're gonna, we're gonna cuss. It is what it is. And I'm sorry if there's some young ears out there, but this is not about that. This is about ways to freedom. We are talking about topics that cover different modalities that can put us on a pace of being back to the folks that the illustrious and the type of societies that we used to live in before we were colonized some 6,000 years ago. So in those, we cover roughly, each episode is going to cover one of 6 themes. That's finance. We're going to talk about spirituality, health, history. We'll do STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And then we'll also do philosophy. And philosophy could get into some things even metaphysically. So in those areas, we cover every episode is going to cover something along that line. And tonight's topic, we're dealing with history. So with that said, again, as all you are coming in, thank you for coming in, tuning in. I appreciate it. Please do me a favor. And when you come in, just go ahead and like the video, whether you're watching it on YouTube or you're watching it on Facebook. It helps me build this channel. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers as soon as I can. We are right now just above 120, so 130 rather. I'm sorry. So we have been growing over this past week, and I'm looking to just expedite how we grow is other folks letting other people know. How we grow also is you go ahead and subscribing so that you get notifications of every episode. By the way, our episodes are every Tuesday through Thursday for the foreseeable future. There will be a break because summer's coming. You know, everybody want to get their summer on. But for the foreseeable future, we're going to be going on until I'm going to take a little break and then we'll come back. But for Tuesdays and Thursdays, right now we're doing 9 p.m. I'm flirting with changing the time. I am absolutely welcome. I welcome anyone, and we can even do a poll if you want to put in the chat. If you feel like doing a 7 o'clock is better or 8 o'clock is better, I'm going to try to get a consensus. I understand 9 o'clock I think it's a sweet spot. It's also, one of my favorite numbers. It's a power number. I'm a number 9. So I'm always like, 9 o'clock, or I'll do something like 7:20. 7 and 2 is 9. So that's the type of person I am. So if I do change it to 7, it might be 7:20 or maybe even 7:02. So don't be mad at me for that. But for the most part, giving thanks for coming in, chiming in. Feel free to put in the chat where you hailing from, where you're dialing in from. Just warms my heart that you're taking time to spend some time with me this evening. So with that said, I wanted to also cover, we talked about the 6 themes. These 6 themes are packaged around what is called, I call it global white dependency, not supremacy. Because, supremacy means that they are powerful, ever ruling and all that kind of stuff. And to me, I think their power is based upon being in control. So if they could keep people in control, then they're in power. But if they lose control of the people, then they're not in power, right? So to me, it's a dependency. They need you to be caught up into their games, right? So if you are caught up into their games, then you are going to aid them in their plans to have this form called so-called supremacy, right? Dr. Dejon, give thanks for coming in. Did I call you doctor? Yeah, I did. Brother Paul, greetings. We got some other Sister Bernice, Erin, good to see you, sister. I appreciate you. She's one of my students. She's always been very faithful and supporting me, giving thanks for you taking the time out this evening. Atlanta, yes, Sister Ami, give thanks for tuning in as well. Another loyal friend coming through. I really appreciate you all tuning in every night we have. You've been here, and I give thanks for that. I really am humbled. It makes me want to continue working and to put out continued content. So let me get back to what I was saying in regards to what these 6 themes are based upon, that blueprint, soul vibration, giving thanks for tuning in. Give thanks. Yes, Paris James, my sister, Charlotte, out here in Charlotte, giving thanks for tuning in, y'all. So those 10 areas are basically what, if we were to say global white, again, dependency, uses to keep control of the world. There's 10 areas. If they control all these 10 areas, then they can keep everything in the way they've been keeping it, right? And it's just, we got to understand everything is systemically done. It's modeled. It isn't just by happenstance that things are the way they are. Someone thought it out, planned it out, and they executed. So in that execution, there has to be a plan. This plan consists of 10 areas. These 10 areas they were conjured up or studied and revealed to the diaspora from Drs. Neely Fuller and ancestor Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, and also Brother Kidi Awad, who came up with the 10th area. So the 10 areas are economics, education, entertainment, health, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war. I'll say it again. Education, economics, entertainment, education, health, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And it took time for me to remember these 10. So don't think that I'm like, I've been saying this for years. So this is like, oh, he can remember 10 words in a row. No, it took years to keep saying this stuff. So, it didn't come easy. But when you look at those 10 areas, you'll see that global white supremacy or dependency is someone of European stature is at the helm. All right. So we know who's running our economics, the banking system, international bankers, the House of Rothschild. These are white folks. When we talk about war, these wars are through countries that are led by white folk. When we talk about labor law, politics, all these things that we look at, if you go and look at names, don't just look at the theme itself, but look at the names involved. Those people, they're more than likely not of our persuasion. So this is how they maintain that so-called illusion of supremacy. And the moment that we start to take one of these or all of these themes and focus on them and create our own counter, that weakens their ability to maintain control. So my thought is, for me, my favorite areas that I address is entertainment, education, economics, and history. Those are my areas. So for me, you might find an area, your area might be law, your area might be war, your area might be gender. So these are the type of things that we should be looking at, and that gender is sex, is that we figure out where can we stop the bleeding. If not entirely, then put a Band-Aid on, and that comes with the research. What are you really good at? What is a passion at? And then doing your research on that and seeing how I can help us as a collective coming with counter opportunities and solutions. All right. So I'm not going to draw that out any much longer. I try to give a preface of that every show, just for those that are coming in that may have never heard me say it before. This might be their first show. So that's why I do that. And I'm sorry for those that have heard it again, but it's great to preach to the choir because it's like practice, what I'm saying? So that you can get to the point where you can say it yourself and you can go out and tell other people, right? So tonight's topic, before I even get to the topic, you might have saw a commercial I played earlier. I actually am in the process of creating a summer workshop. I will actually air the commercial again. We're going to be doing commercials. You can see right here, there's the ad for Who's the Boulé book. Yeah, I ain't playing, y'all. And all this work, everything you see here, as my mom said, a closed mouth don't get fed. I design all this stuff, from the content to the graphical stuff to the writing. Everything that you see here is done by myself. I have no squad. And that's not to say I don't want one, but it's just to show, I want to show you my talents, my skills. These are things that I offer. And I chose to do this in a way that will allow me to be in control of my message. So this is also for those out there that are they have a voice and they want to say something, but they're waiting on a graphic designer to do it, do the graphics for the flyer for them, or they're waiting for someone to do the videography for them. Get on YouTube University if you need to. I've been doing this stuff for over 25 years, but get on YouTube University and learn these things. You can do it yourself. We have all the technology right here. We don't need to go to any big publishing house and coming out of pocket or whatnot to pay for something for a reel or whatever. If you learn how to do it, and making the software much more easier. Like Canva is an enemy of mine, because I'm a graphic designer, and people want to well, I'll do my flyer on Canva, and I'm like, damn, that's just actually that would have been my client. But nevertheless, this is the empowerment, and I understand that. That's very important. So with that said, I'm just making sure that we're getting some stagnation here. I don't want to have any issues with my internet as we get into today's topic. All right. So we're going to get into today's topic, right? So tonight's topic is who is the Boulé, right? And we're talking about America's oldest fraternity and their impact. And I'm also going to make it very personal because I'm going to talk about my experiences having pledged undergrad and being an Alpha for 7 years and the experiences that I had. And they weren't all bad. Really, the problems came once I learned about the Boulé, because I loved Alpha. I ain't go front. I loved everything about Alpha from what I knew, but then I learned the other part, and that's where I had to make a decision. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and show my slide here, because, like I said, I'm a visual person. I like to show y'all things. It kind of helps drive home the point, so that, you can take notes or do whatever is necessary to keep you abreast of what's going on here. All right. So where we left off, and again, if you want to, you can go back to the archive and you can watch. It's the second episode where we did part 1. That was last Wednesday. All right. So let me just get a little sip of agua. All right. So let's get it in, y'all. And I hope that this information, you find it to be informative. I hope that if you are, Brother Sister Nefra, greetings. That if you are in a fraternity or in a sorority, my hope is that you will remove the emotional, personal feeling about this information, because this information is older than us. That's what I always have to tell folks, is that, this was before I was even a thought. You know what I'm saying? This is over 100 years ago. So these people made these decisions, these choices before we were even thought. They had us in mind, obviously, but these things were done well before we were even a thought. So for us to take it personal, I think is a little bit too cliche. I think it's about ownership. Yes, be emotional in the fact that you didn't know these things, or you can even go and validate it. You might want to dispute it. You have every right to dispute what I'm saying. Go and do your own diligence. The stuff is public knowledge. However, if you still feel that you are okay with wearing those letters, I'm not going to judge. Just, I wish you wouldn't. I could say 1,000 things that try to make you feel guilty, but that's not my path. My path is to present you with information. You do with it what you will. All right. So we're going to go in tonight, y'all. So I want to pick up where I left off. A lot of this work about the Boulé, a lot of this, not even about the Boulé, before I even say that, a lot of the work of people of African descent in the United States, particularly those that are come from enslaved backgrounds, those that were brought over here and reared here for generations. We were robbed of our identity, didn't know who we were. And so we, for a long time, didn't even know what to call ourselves. And we still are going through that process, right? We back to calling ourselves, ninjas again. But if it wasn't for the work of this brother, George T. and James, who literally sacrificed his life, if he didn't write this book, we wouldn't be having this conversation. If he didn't write this book, there wouldn't be, I'll even dare say there wouldn't be a Black Panther movie. There wouldn't be maybe even a Roots series. There would be no content, no books, no magazines, no comic books, no movie, no any type of media that would speak about our connection to Africa at all. Because whites were doing a damn good job of keeping us from that up from 1619 when we were brought over here, as physically in Jamestown, Virginia. And then post 1863, when we were emancipated, they went on it. And then Jim Crow was brought in shortly after, because we were having a moment of prosperity. We were going to do our thing. And they're like, no, we can't have that. So let's bring in Jim Crow. Is that if it wasn't for the works of George T. and James, his book is called Stolen Legacy. And this book really lets you understand how our information was hijacked. Our information was whitewashed. Okay. And he sums it up in saying that Greek philosophy is actually stolen African philosophy. This book he wrote in 1954. He was a professor at the University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff. And he was a 33rd degree Mason. And back then, Masons, if you know anything about Masonry, if you take an oath, you're held to it. Now, I don't know about the Masons of today, but back then, the Masons, if you were told to give no secrets, and you even took oath that said, if I was to divulge any information, that I would be, I should be have my throat cut from ear to ear and my tongue cut out. Right? So this is information that was only for a select few. Right? And this is both it's York, Wright, and Prince Hall. And all of them had that oath. And so for him to write this book, Stolen Legacy, release it in 1954, and then just so happened to die the same year. Again, ancestor. So Steve Coakley talks about how you have to remove coincidence from your vocabulary when you are studying global white dependency. And so it's not coincidental that he dies. Now, there's two stories. The one I'm riding with is that, he mysteriously died after the book was published, and they found him later, and they said he was cut, from his throat was cut, and his tongue was cut out. So even if that wasn't the case, he wrote the book knowing that he was not supposed to divulge any of these secrets. If you have not read this book, please read this book. The interesting thing next is that when the book came out in 1954, it was not released to the public. It was shelved by the publishing house for 23 years. So this book comes out, it gets written. He's a professor at the University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff. Even the university school bookstore wouldn't put his book out there. The very school he taught at declined his book. They shelved that book for 22 years. No one could read Stolen Legacy. No one knew about Stolen Legacy. And he died and nobody thought anything else next about it. Right? Didn't put one and two together. So Asa Hilliard comes along in 1977 and he republishes the book. He actually writes the foreword that was later taken out. I have a copy of it. Actually, I wrote about the foreword in my book, Who is the Boulé? The foreword is inside there, but it's not in the foreword. The foreword is not in there today. But the original foreword, and he's really direct about things about what happened and, why they're hiding secrets and, the whole type of stuff. But it's a very interesting foreword to read. But he republished the book in 1977. And because of Asa Hilliard, we were able to get our hands onto this book. And this book has, Sister Ami said, hurt me to find out about Asa. I was just getting into him. And we're going to talk about Asa in a minute. I know what you're referring to. His work is still monumental. And what she's referring to is because I found out, I didn't find out. I knew this years ago that Asa was in the Boulé, and we're going to talk about my encounter with him. Because I got to confront you. If I look up to you and I find out you're part of this thing and what's up. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But nevertheless, Asa, kudos, give thanks for his efforts in bringing this book back into the circulation. And because of that, we were able to now pinpoint that Kemet originally was of African descent, unlike what white folks are trying to put us due to Rockefeller and James Henry Brest, who wanted to put out the false narrative, as I talked about in the first part last week, about how the Caucasians were called, Africans, and Kemet were called light-skinned Africans or something like that. Basically trying to say that Caucasian people lived in Kemet, but that's the audacity and the caucasity of what they do. They try to change the story and the narrative. And if you don't know any better, you're going to believe them, right? Because they have agitation propaganda. They can keep saying it everywhere, and you don't hear the alternative, so you think that's truth. All right. So the family tree, let's get into the family tree. We talked about this. We talked about Phi Beta Kappa. Phi Beta Kappa is the first secret society or society that holds secrets in America. Established in 1776. We talk about May 1st, 1776 in Bavarian, Germany, is when we find that the Illuminati was founded. And then, ironically, the very same day here in America, 50 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence also on May 1st, and they did the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, but May 1st, 2 months prior to the same day that the Illuminati was founded in Bavarian, Germany, is that they decided to sign the Luciferian Doctrine. The Luciferian Doctrine, if you look it up, this is where the founders of this father pledged their lives to Satan. All right, so again, no coincidence. There was no internet, there was no telephone. A bird carrier couldn't fly from America over to Germany to pass notes. So somehow that information got out for them to both on the same day decide to pledge their allegiance to wickedness, right? So it's not a coincidence. But they were ousted in 1776 in America. America back then wasn't having it. So they ousted Phi Beta Kappa. Phi Beta Kappa then went underground. They are now still here today as a honor society. In every college, you'll see them as an honor society. but they resurfaced in 1832 as Skull and Bones at Yale University, second chapter of the Illuminati. This is the chapter that we find that the Boulé has said they wanted to create their organization on, the tenets of Skull and Bones. They said they want to be just like Skull and Bones. They want to relive or resurface or rebirth the tenets of what they do. And if you know anything about Skull and Bones, if you know anything about Cecil Rhodes, Laura Rothschild, etc., these are known sociopaths, serial killers, murderers, rapists, stealers of the land and the people. And you have these ninjas out of Philly that want to create a Black organization that is mirroring or mimicking the deeds of what these men have done in 1832, still here today. Interesting, right? So here are the founders. Here are the founders of the Boulé. We have Henry Minton. He was the first guy. He's the head HNIC. All these are physicians. Algernon Bashir Jackson, Edwin Clarence Howard, Richard John Warwick Jr., Eugene Henson, and Robert Jones Abele. All of them were physicians. Some of them were doctors. I mean, some of them were dentists, etc. So they all worked, surgeons, whatnot. But they all were in the field of medicine in some kind of capacity in Philly, and they were elite. And they wanted to create this organization that we know of today. Now, today, the Boulé is consisting of 126 chapters. They have a cutoff at 5,000 members. Why? I don't know why that number, but they will not go over 5,000. So if someone is a candidate, they'll have to wait till someone actually transitions, or if they're outed, I don't know, whatever reason, why, ever else. But when a spot gets open, then it gets filled. And we see here that they have chapters all around the world. And they comprise of Black America's, or even probably in the world, our greatest as far as power and wealth is concerned, our greatest talent. These men are already established, so they're not looking for anybody with potential. You have to have already achieved. So these are why we see people like a Bill Cosby, a Douglas Wilder, who was, a politician from Virginia, John Johnson. Some of these guys have deceased. Carter G. Woodson, miseducation of the Negro. He was in the Boulé. He actually was kicked out, but in the book Miseducation of the Negro, he didn't give any names, so I do hold him responsible for that. He could have told us some names. He did write the book, but he kind of just said, hey, they shot your mom. And my thing is, when someone says they, the next question is, who is they? Why won't you tell me exactly who? But we find that one of the tenets of the Boulé, if you look at their logo, and I'll talk about that in a minute, there's a paw that covers a vase. Inside the vase are the names, and these are the names that they protect. So he actually did exactly what he was supposed to do as far as his pledging is concerned to dedication towards the Boulé, is to never reveal those names. Martin Luther King, he was also in the Boulé. Earl Graves and Messy Jesse, just to name a few, are members of, or have been, and they might have transitioned. So now we're speaking about this. Let me go ahead and bring up this logo, because it's important that we think about why our logo is created. They're not created just out of, hey, let's put a Nike to just say, let's take this swoop and just put that on there. They did some diligence. They did some research. Symbolism is very important, right? So in the upper right-hand corner, you see the Sphinx with this paw over the vase, right? Before I get to that, you see in the far left, you'll see that is the Skull and Bones there in the 322. That is their logo. They are in New Haven, Connecticut. This is where Yale University is. New Haven, Connecticut is synonymously also called New Heaven, right? New Heaven. And what you see under that skull is the city map of New Haven, Connecticut. And you'll see that it is diagrammed in the form of 9 squares, like a Rubik's Cube, right? It's also called a tetragrammaton. So we're talking about mathematics, we're talking about science, etc. These city planning, they put that in place. Tetragrammaton is also what you see on the checkerboard. And this is a city about playing chess. And we find that Skull and Bones could not maintain its power without having a underdog or a subservient type of or front line to maintain their power, that front line being the Boulé. So the Boulé, you see that arrow pointing from the tetragrammaton or the 9 squares over to the Boulé. You'll see that on the bottom row, is 3 Greek letters. Sigma looks like a E. The 2 T's, that's actually a Greek letter called pi. And you see a circle with a line in the middle that is called Phi. Sigma Pi Phi, that is their original name, Sigma Pi Phi, aka the Boulé. But in between those letters are a tetragrammaton. Interesting, right? You see a tetragrammaton. So you have a black organization, again, y'all, that decided we're going to have a logo. On our logo, we're going to use the city of 9 squares, which is what New Haven is called. New Haven or New Heaven. We're going to put that on our logo. On top of the fact that we're going to put the Sphinx on our logo. The Sphinx is a guardian animal, guards and protects. Okay, so we're seeing that this guardian animal is protecting, but what is it protecting? Well, we see the paw. The paw is right paw is hands over a vase. This vase, inside the vase is a circle within a circle with a dot. That circle within the dot, the circle within the circle with the dot has 2 symbolic meanings. The original meaning of the circle within the circle can be associated with Heru. If you go back to do chematology and understand the history of Kemet, that is a symbol of Ra and Heru, right? Heru is part of the original trinity of Asa, Aset, and Heru. So in that respect, I see, well, the paw is not covering it, it's trapping the history of Heru from its own people, right? Then what we also see, the other meaning I see, because there's double meanings and triple meanings, if you know how to interpret it. Kingship, yes, sister, exactly. Kingship. So if you see that the circle within the circle is also the same symbol that is used for the Cecil Rhodes and Lord Rothschild's round table group. The round table. The round table group is their symbol. So what we're seeing is this black organization is protecting and keeping away 2 parties at the same time. It's protecting the tenets of global white dependency, the Cecil Rhodes, Lord Rothschild's roundtable group, and it's also concealing the original history of Kemet, because the Greeks were not our friends when we talk about Africa, which also means that it's oxymoronic to be called a Black Greek. There's no such thing. There's never been a such thing. So we're saying that this Black Greek organization is doing what Greeks always do, is conceal the story of our true history. It's just, this time it's done by its own people. Crazy, right? So this tetragrammaton also, we see the 9 squares, but if you see under the logo, you'll see that under there is the 8 BGLOs, Black Greek letter organizations. Alpha Alpha, Kappa Alpha Psi, Omega Psi Phi, Phi Beta Kappa, and then the sororities, aka Alpha Kappa Alpha, Delta Sigma Theta, Zeta Phi Beta, and Sigma Gamma Rho. And then in the center, you see the father of them all, which is Sigma Pi Phi. So you have what's called the Divine Nine. We've heard of that, Divine Nine. Now, today they put the Divine Nine, they add Iota Phi Theta, but Iota Phi Theta was found in 1970 something. These other organizations were found as late as 22. So 1904 to 1922. So, and again, I'm sorry, 1906 to 1922. The Alpha was found in 1906, December 4th, but the Boulé was found at May 15th, 1904. So the original Divine Nine, you got the Boulé at the center, and then you have the 4 fraternities and 4 sororities. That is the real Divine Nine. The other thing is that the name Boulé means advisor to the king. Now, when we think of advisor, most of us think, because the English is it's a bastard language, and it has so many different meanings. There's 2, T-O, T-W-O, T-O-O, there's 4, F-O-R-E, F-O-R, F-O-U-R. Like, there's so many different, definitions for the same word, right? Advisor, there's one that gives advice, and then there's one that takes advice. And the advisor, which one do you think the Boulé is when it comes to global white dependency? Which one do you think it is, right? It's clear that they take direction from their overseer. Very, very clear, right? If you're not clear about that, then, you need to listen more about, and read more about global white dependency, right? So anyway, so they were also as advisors, meaning they carry out the deeds to maintain the king's position and power. They were called the lords of the landlords. Okay, lords of the landlords. So let me just make sure that I am on cue here with my slides here, because I'm supposed to play. Come on, here we go. Yes, I'm supposed to play this clip of Ancestor Steve Coakley, and he goes in and gives a better definition of what I'm speaking about. So let me go ahead and bring him in.
What was it to it? Wasn't it the holy city? So that they were protecting what they thought was most important. Okay, that's all I wanted to get you to. To which each person passed her lyre, the Sphinx addressed the question. What is the animal that in the morning goes on 4 feet, at noon on 2 feet, and in the evening on 3 feet? Those who failed to answer her riddle, she destroyed.
Now I'm going to go ahead and break this down, unpackage it that he's saying. It's Steve Coakley is the Boulé founder, or Boulé, I'm sorry, the first, he's considered the Boulé buster. Excuse me, my throat. He's considered the Boulé buster. He's the one in 1990 that came out and exposed the Boulé for who they are. And he dedicated his life, and he has numerous lectures on it. And he was actually, I went to go see him in 1996, and he blew my mind. And he's responsible for the stuff that I've been putting out. And I was able to relate my experience being an undergrad to add to this topic. What he's talking about right now is the riddle of Sphinx. The riddle of Sphinx is one of the rituals that are used by Masons. And, you know, we have to understand that Sphinx that we see in Africa that's in front of the pyramids, that is originally not called a Sphinx. You got to look up what the Sphinx means. And the Sphinx means guardian animals, I mentioned, but it's also a 3-part animal. It's 1 part lion, 1 part eagle, and the 3rd part woman. Okay. And the name means to strangle or as a gatekeeper. So there's a story, the riddle of the Sphinx, where an initiate is asked a question in Masonry. They ask you what walks on 4 by day, 2 by afternoon, and 3 by night, or 4 by in the morning, 2 by afternoon, 3 by night. And there's a story of Oedipus who got the story right, and there was a city called Thebes, and people were trying to come into the city, but the Sphinx will sit on a corner or the ledge of the cliff over the entrance of Thebes, and each person coming through would have to answer this question. If they couldn't answer the riddle, then they would be devoured. So Oedipus goes out there and he gets it correctly. And what does the Sphinx do when he answers the question? The answer is man. By morning, walks on all 4 as a baby, crawling. By afternoon, walks on 2 as an adult. And by 3 as an elder with the cane, right? So that 4 plus 2 plus 3 is 9, right? So there's a number 9. We're going to see numbers 9 come throughout. And again, 9 is a power number. So don't even think that because the Boulé's using it that the number 9 is wrong. Or don't think we've even deduced to think that 666 is a negative number because they think it's got something to do with the devil. It doesn't. But that's the power that they want to keep you from numerology, is that if you are afraid of dealing with these things that our ancestors, originated or even inherited and passed on through us, so we used to live in this lifestyle, then you'll never know truly who you are. So you're going to see 9 throughout. I'm going to be talking about this. We've already seen it in the Tetragrammaton. Now we're seeing it in the riddle of the Sphinx. We're going to see in a couple more things as we talk tonight. But the point I'm making here is that Coakley is breaking down this riddle, and the Sphinx then commits suicide after the answer was correct. And the question is, what does that have to do with that relic that we see that's standing in front of, perched in front of the mirror, or the original name is Mirror of the Pyramids? For over, anyone can even guess how long. It's been over 30,000 years, some even think. Has nothing to do with that. So again, this keeps you away from knowing who you are. So let me go ahead and proceed, and I will unpack this as he speaks about things.
All right. It says there is another answer to the riddle of Sphinx, best revealed by consideration of the Pythagorean values of numbers, which is a thief. Pythagoras is a thief. Show you right. And it says the 4, the 2, and the 3 produce the sum of 9. The 4 represents the ignorant man, the 2 the intellectual man, and 3 the spiritual man. Infinite humanity walks on 4 legs, evolving humanely on 2 legs, and of the power of our own mind redeems and illuminates magnets as the staff of wisdom. The Sphinx is therefore the mystery of nature, the embodiment of the secret doctrine, and all who cannot solve her riddle perish. To pass the Sphinx is to attain personal immortality. Now that's important because I'm going to show you how they immortalize the people who are the caretakers to the secret society. Their names live forever because the owners of the secret society forever perpetuate the name, which that means immortality. You live forever in the other members of the secret society's minds and hearts.
So that's a very, very profound point he's making. We make this all the time. We've named people, we've named cities, I mean, even cars, you know, all types of things, schools, you know, holidays, you know, again, parks, street names. If you walk in your neighborhood and find out why a street name is named what it is, especially if you live in one of the 13 colonies in the east coast of America, upper northeast coast of America, you will find that a lot of those names have something to do with some plantation owner. And so when we are talking about, you know, if you live in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, and who was Peter Stuyvesant? Peter Stuyvesant was a slave master, right? We all know who Columbus is, but you got in Manhattan, Columbus Circle. You know, you have Columbus, Ohio. You have Rhodes Island after Cecil Rhodes. You know, we have Rhodes Scholar. Zimbabwe used to be called Rhodesia. You know, we have all these things that are named after these folks. And even though they're long gone and dead, there is that power of energy when you say a name or a word, it's word sound power. It is still resurrecting and keeping them relevant. So we're doing this without even knowing it. That's why it's so important us to rethink about what we call ourselves, what we, you know, and I'm saying you got to go change your name, but, you know, for those that want to have at it, just as I have. But the point is that we need to think about the power that we give things. And I'm going to talk about mentor soon. All right, tight.
Now, this Grecian Sphinx, in fact, at a recent lecture in LA, Aswa Kwesi translated this portion going across here, and it made a lot of sense. Boulé means advisors to the king. When he translated this Grecian Sphinx dialogue here, he said it meant lords of the landlord. Lords of the landlord, which fitted the pattern again. These are the king's knights. The king don't fight, the knights fight. The knight ain't the king, he just worked for the king. Now, when I thought about the Grecian Sphinx and the number 9, I thought about this. So you're right. How do the Greek thing fit? One good tape up there too, brother, is the challenge to the Greeks. Brother Coakley at University of Syracuse, which has a lot of things in it, even the ending to this lecture, because it was similar to that one. That's an interesting one up there. You'll see those titles on it. That one with that's a good all-around one, the one with my picture on it. See, that's it. There you go. Alpha, Kappa, Phi Beta, Sigma, Omega Psi Phi, Zeta Phi Beta, aka Delta Sigma Gamma Rho. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1 make 9. The Grecian Sphinx is keyed on the number 9. There are 4 male and 4 female Greek-based fraternity and sororities, and the Boulé, the granddaddy of them all, make 9. There have never been a 10th one. These were constructed by the late 1920s. There has never been a 10th because it would make it numerically insignificant. And you can, in essence, know it's like a 1, 4, and 4. The 4 male, 4 female, by the 1920s, they were over. Thank you very much, sister. Now, interestingly enough, if we all know who it is that's in control, what will happen to the sphinxes, the Grecian sphinxes? It says here, discovering one who knew the answer to her riddle, the sphinx cast herself from the cliff which bordered the road and perished. Which means that if this is a gatekeeper protecting something secret, and you with the power of your thrust reveal it, then the gatekeeper has no real function. They must self-destruct. So why does the Boulé resist the sharing of the information amongst the black people?
Damn it, I was muted the whole time. My bad. I was saying that the point that was being made was that oh man, I forgot what I was saying. Never mind. We'll just play what he said. My bad, y'all.
Is because they will not get the privileges of prosperity that they've been guaranteed for never telling who the wizard is if their role is rendered impotent.
I remember what I was saying. What I was saying was that when we talk about the Wizard of Oz, we saw the Wizard of Oz and how the Wizard of Oz had this alleged power, but once we found out who it was behind that curtain, this little small miniature man, we realized he wasn't as powerful as he proclaimed to be. So it's the same with global white dependency. So the moment that we decide to emancipate ourselves and learn the game of what they've been playing on us, and then at the same time create alternative solutions that we're ready to protect at any, by all means necessary, Brother Malcolm would say, I really feel like they don't have a dog in the fight. I really feel like we would be able to attain ourselves. Now, it may not happen overnight. It may take a while to do so. And trust, that's why they're focused on so many things to keep us out of our who know who we are, at the same time trying to poison us with our food and with vaccinations and all these type of things that are happening to weaken us. And at the biggest point of keeping us dissected with this crabs in a barrel theory where black people can't come together, this is what it keeps them in power. But the moment that we can get rid of those things, again, if you look at the 10 areas of people, activity is a great starting point that we would have a position to actually reveal who the Wizard of Oz is. All right.
So the part of dealing with the OEO, you remember in the Wizard of Oz, there was them little black things, them little monkeys with the wings?
Yeah.
Wow. And you remember in the Wiz with Michael Jackson and them, they all was working for Eveline. Eveline said, don't bring me no bad news. And you know they had the little black suits on with the little wings on them, right? Go back and check this shit, because once they kick Eveline ass, right, they put the water on the Wicked Witch, they got past the OEO boys, now they up on Eveline, or the Boulé or the Munchkins, right? And now she been flushed down the toilet. It was a cleansing process. And the people that worked for her did what? They shed the skin of the enemy, unzipped it, and did what they say. Can you see a brand new day? Da, 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 da. And then they picked up the people that they had been blocking off the yellow brick road and carried them as far down to the door of the wizard as they could go. On the path, you will meet people of like character. With them, you will form a bond that needs no utterance of mere words. But you as the organizer must learn how to use what a person has to offer. If it's a 60% brother, try to get 59.
Thanks.
If it's a 90%, 90, 89, 87. Try to get what a person has to give, but everybody didn't live their life to qualify for the right to kill the wizard. Because weaker, more susceptible or vulnerable to evil people will never get the confidence, because they will forever believe they never deserve the privilege and will deny it to themselves. So 100 virgins will whip 1,000,000 whores because of the inherited right they have to call upon the forces that are greater than their own ability. When Garvey said, I'll be back in the eye of the hurricane, he understood that sometimes you will have to do things in bad weather. The shit get bad. I said, ooh, I'm worried. Say, ooh, I'm happy. This might be it. Say, y'all get ready. When the lights cloud and shit get real bad, might even be a huge snowstorm. That's the day that the walkers beat the flyers and the drivers. Miss Daisy, weakest one on the planet, way at the top of the hill in the biggest house, never cooked her own food, grown anything, washed shit, don't even answer the telephone. You will not have a hard time kicking her ass or her husband's ass if you can beat the OEO.
So I'm going to stop it there because I just wanted to give him his flowers, even though he has transitioned. He's an amazing orator, speaker, researcher, and I just felt it was just due to give him a moment for y'all to get a glimpse of who Steve Coakley is if you've never heard him speak before. You can find videos of him on YouTube. Look up his research. I will talk about my relationship with him down the road, but I really wish that he wrote more, because the video is really hard to come by. But nevertheless, the work that he did should be definitely researched, and take with you what you feel you need to take with you. All right. So let me go back to where we were here. So so that's good, paying homage to ancestor Steve Coakley. So the thing here is, there's a reason why things were done. And when you do the research, you'll find that a lot of those superlatives that they give us that we're supposed to look up to every Black History Month, particularly, we find that there's a side that they do not want us to know about. And when you find that side, you'll find that it's actually damning. It's actually oxymoronic to who they are portraying, or trying to portray them to us as. W.B. Du Bois, or Dubois, however you want to say it, he has been noted as saying, first of all, he was a hater of Marcus Garvey. He was a hater of Booker T. Washington. He saw them as competition. Excuse me. And so he was quoted as saying that we needed to keep the Black professional away from the ranks of Marcus Garvey. Now, he's saying this in the early 1900s. This is, again, 40, not even 40 years out of emancipation, or some about roughly 40 years, under 50 years. So we're talking about 2 or 3 generations. We're now being educated, and he's afraid that, or not even afraid, he prefers to be, because he's in the Boulé, he understands his role. He needs to make Black people believe that this is your path, not knowing who yourself is and being independent and knowing where you come from and all of the wealth that you have in yourself and in the land. No, let's stay here in America. Let's be part of this utopia, even though we're going to be, the last in line to get things. All of his, you got to look at his repertoire. Who did W.B. Du Bois hang around? Did he have any Black friends? He didn't. A lot of his friends, his best friends, were all white. And he went to Fisk. Yeah, he went to Fisk, but he also went to Oxford. Okay, so the point is that you got to look at who these people are. Yeah, he died in Africa the last few years of his life, working with Nkrumah. But also there was a coup after Nkrumah, after he came there. And once a spy, always a spy, I always say. And there were some things happening behind the reason for him going to Africa was because they wanted to house the Africana Encyclopedia Project, which has now was taken over by Henry Louis Gates, who was also on the Boulé. They're controlling the information. All right. So why, though, is the question? Why would W.B. Du Bois have this hate, this disdain for another Black man who wants to see Black people win, Booker T. and Garvey? Why would he have so much hate and disdain over that? Well, this is when you got to think about what was, for instance, Marcus Garvey's underlying message. He said this, and this is really when he came to New York, he came with fire and brimstone. I mean, people, you talk about a Farrakhan or people of today, I mean, they have no weight when you compare it to Marcus Garvey, what he did and his impact coming to Harlem. He said this: if the oil of Africa is good for Rockefeller's interest, if iron is good for Carnegie Trust, then these minerals are good for us. Why should we allow Wall Street and the capitalist group of America and other countries exploit our country when they refuse to give us a fair chance in the countries of our adoption? They won't give us a fair chance in America, so why should we rock with them? Why should not Africa give to the world its Black Rockefeller, Rothschilds, and Henry Ford? So let's just understand that there was a question posed: what project did you say W.B. Du Bois was on? It was the Africana Britannica Encyclopedia. I'm sorry, not Africana Encyclopedia, like the Britannica. What is it called? The Britannica, like the European version. There's an Africana. I want to say Britannica, but I could be wrong. African, I don't know why it's escaping me right now, but there is a huge encyclopedia work that's put out by Henry Louis Gates. If you look it up, put it actually out with Bill Gates through Microsoft. But if you look at that project, that was supposed to give a historical timeline of Black people on the planet. And some of that stuff is biased. Some of that stuff is, and there's a lot of stuff that's omitted that's not even in there. That's the other big part, right? And Brother Gerard says, sadly, one of our biggest obstacles is our own people trying to always appease thy oppressor. Facts. Blacks factuals, bro. So Garvey is saying that right now, and that when he was alive, he's saying right now they're over in Africa and they're taking our land. They're taking our resources. I showed you in episode 1 how with the Nicene Council and the what was the other one that happened? Oh God, all these things are rushing at me right now. A lot of information, but it's going to come to me. But we had the where they broke up Africa and decided they were going to chalk it up to different countries, so every different country could come and take a part of it, of that country, because of the natural resources that were there: diamonds, gold, oil, copper, all those type of things. They decided, the Berlin Conference, give thanks. Yes, Sister Ami, give thanks for the save. The Berlin Conference, where they came in there, the Nicene Council was Christianity, but it's still the same type of thing. But this is when they're over there, and they're still there now. And not just them, but Asians are over there as well, taking our natural resources and at the same time treating us like shit. Right? So Garvey had enough of that. He's letting people know, because at the time people were not, Sister Kendra says they are still taking it today. Facts. That, we at the time back in the 1920s, we weren't traveling, we weren't leaving New York. If you lived in New York, you weren't leaving your borough. So you weren't going to go even go to California. You were talking about what's going on in Africa. You don't have anything to do with that. So we don't know what's happening. So Garvey comes and relays this information to us because we weren't aware that there is a global atrocity that's happening. And this is trickling down to where we live and why we're in a situation, because it's done by the same culprits. So this is the point where you now have this Negro that understands this in W.B. Du Bois, and he's trying to do whatever he can. Now, let's also give flowers to Marcus Garvey, because Marcus Garvey did something that he addressed an issue that white folks at the time were making fun of. There was, in 1896, there was this song that came out, All Coons Look Like Me. I'm sorry, All Coons Look Alike Like Me, Look Alike to Me, by Ernest Hogan. This was put out in 1896. Now, this is their music, right? And this was at the top of the billboards. 4 years later, Will A. Heelan and J. Fred Help came out with the song, The Hot Track. Every race has a flag but the coon. So these two songs etched in history the word coon and it being associated with Black people, right? And so come to find out that these songs were actually published by Rothschilds and Company. It says 1091, supposedly 1901. That's a typo on my end, my bad. But it was published by A.M. Rothschilds. So Rothschilds in the music industry. Like, imagine Rothschilds as Diddy back then. You know what I mean? So he's in there and he's saying, we're going to put out this narrative because, again, agitation propaganda. If we put out the music, people will believe what we're putting out, the message. So they put out this song called Every Race Has a Flag But the Coon, and I am going to play it for you. And the lyrics are on here as well. So check out this song. The song is whack, though. It's really, I mean, I hate to hear it, but let's just do it for record's sake. Here we go.
The leader of the Blackville Club arose last Labor night and said when we were on parade today, I really felt so much ashamed I wished I could turn white, 'cause all the white folks marched with banners gay. Just at the stand, the German band, they waved their flag and played to Walk Dem Rhine. The Scotch Brigade, each man arrayed in new plaid dresses, marched to Old Lang Syne. Even Spaniards and Swedes, folks of all kinds and creeds, had their banner except the coon alone. Every nation can brag about some kind of a flag. Why can't we get an empire?
verse, y'all.
a
Second
flag
verse.
that ought to win a prize. Just take a flannel shirt and paint it red. Then draw a chicken on it with 2 poker dice for eyes, and have it waving razors round its head. To make it quaint, you've got to paint a possum with a pork chop in his teeth. To give it tone, a big ham bone. You sketch upon a banjo underneath, and be sure not to skip just a policy slip. Have it marked for 1144. Then them Irish and Dutch, they can't guy us so much. We should have had this emblem long before. For Ireland has her harp and shamrock. England floats her lion bolt. Even China waves a dragon. Germany an eagle ghost. Bonnie Scotland loves her thistle. Turkey has her crescent moon. And what won't Yankees do for the old red, white, and blue? Every race has a flag but the coon.
That was painful. Oh, it was painful. Not only was the track whack, but the words were just, just disrespectful. And they played this song as much as they could, and they did that to incite riots. They would play it at carnivals, at outdoor events. They would do it to try to arouse Black people, to get them to want to do something, give them a reason to fight, to cause issues, to give them a reason to get, put in jail, or to create, to get a beat down from a bunch of white folks. You know what I mean? And again, this is what agitation propaganda is, that they create a vehicle where they put out information, and their goal is to get you to respond. If you're white and you hear this, you're going to believe it's true. You'll even start singing a song. If you're Black, you'll be upset, and a part of you will also believe it's true because there's no example. There's nothing else out there to combat that. Well, with that said, we understand that Garvey was aware of this. He was aware of this song. So he understood the importance of us having a flag. And so he came out with a flag shortly thereafter. I think it was 4 years later. And this was his response. Show me the race or the nation without a flag, and I will show you a race of people without any pride. In song and mimicry, they have said, every race has a flag but the coon. How true? But that was said of us 4 years ago. They can't say it now. So Garvey was all about choosing a flag with colors that meant something. And we know the red. And if you ever see me in my posts, I'm always doing RBG, always. Red's for the blood of our people and our ancestors, and also the blood that flows through me that allows my bloodline in the future. This is about past, present, and future. And Black is obviously for the people itself and what we represent. And the green is both for the natural land, the vegetation, and also the wealth that is on this planet, and particularly in Africa. And you might also find that when I write Africa, there's other people, you might see them spell Africa with a K instead of the C. And they do that because they say until Africa is free. K is a form of rebellion. So the K, until Africa is free, we would not be spelling with a C. And there are those that will hear this say, well, Africa is not our original name. You are absolutely right. But currently today, that's what they're calling it. The original name, the oldest name that we found by Sheikh Adi Diop was called Alkebulan, Alkebulan. So I have, I acknowledge that word. I have T-shirts with that word on it. I acknowledge the original name of our folks, and it's important for us to speak that word sound power as I mentioned earlier. All right. So Garvey was big on that, and that was something that these ninjas, at the direction of global white dependents, said, hey, we need to get your people in line. We can't have them knowing about Africa and wanting to know about, because they learn about Africa, they can learn about what we're doing. And we can't have that. So they got the Boulé in line to create some diversions. And this is where history is really, really important, that you do your history, you do your diligence, and do it chronologically or in order that Asa Hilliard talks about. Find out else what was going on. Is that 1904 to 19, those early 19 teens, a lot of things happened. A lot of things were established. Not only was the Boulé founded, not only were the fraternities and sororities founded, we found the NAACP was founded, the Urban League was founded, Jack and Jill, Urban League, I said Urban League, NAACP, Boys and Girls, it's yeah, I said that. So the point is that those core foundation organizations were founded that we now herald today as century-old plus organizations that have given us no progress, right? Given us no progress or slow progress, if any. And we look at HBCUs. Those of you that are listening that have maybe been to an HBCU and you think that you had a better quality of education when you find out that HBCUs were not founded by Black folk. The only HBCU that's founded by a Black person, I'm talking about those older ones, was Booker T at Tuskegee. All the other ones were found to rival him. And in fact, not only did they rival Tuskegee and Booker T, and they, he had died a mysterious death, allegedly, is that once he passed on, they brought in a Boulé guy to run Tuskegee. Who was that? R.R. Moton. R.R. Moton was in the Boulé. And under his watch, we find that the Tuskegee experiment happened, where we find that the doctors who injected the brothers with syphilis were not white doctors, they were Black doctors who were in the Boulé. Okay? Steve Coakley talks about all this stuff. So, these are things that we don't know about, that our own people injected us with this disease, right? Another big piece that was omitted from history that doesn't get talked about is the vision that Garvey had. Yes, he had the Black Star Line. He wanted to have, the shipping company and, industry was it was a very important. He understood that importance. And the unfortunate thing is that he was dealing with some ninjas that infiltrated and turned against him, right? And they made it seem like he was an embezzlement, or he was, they call him on mail fraud charges, which is what got him put in jail, and he was deported back to Jamaica, and he pretty much died out of depression. But there was one thing that R.R. Moton did that stands out that people don't talk about, and the Boulé is actually the ones that are responsible for the companies Firestone and Bridgestone now. Firestone is a rubber tire company. Bridgestone they bought them out, I think in the 1980s, I believe it was. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think it was in the 1980s. And we find that these companies would not be the mega billion-dollar companies that they are today had it not been for the role that the Boulé played. Now, what role was that? Marcus Garvey, one of his things he wanted to do was he wanted to buy land in Liberia. And in Liberia, he understood that Liberia had lots of lands that had rubber crops, rubber trees. These trees would emit sap from the tree that could be turned into rubber. So again, you're thinking about early 1900s. So we're talking about Henry Ford, the Model T Ford cars getting created. You got Tesla, not the car, but Nikola Tesla that's dealing with electricity. You got, these early industrial cats, your Carnegie Mellons, your John Carnegie, your JP Morgans, your John D. Rockefellers, etc. And here comes this Black man that wants to have the idea of getting into the rubber industry. Well, if you get a rubber industry and they're just not making cars, guess what? You go okay, because nobody else makes tires, right? At the time, I think outside of the electric car being designed, it was Henry Ford that was the main person that was creating the automobile. So he wanted to keep that all to himself. He wanted to own also, the rubber company if he could. So what happened is Garvey found out that there was 1 million acres of land being sold for $1. And he put in a bid to buy that land at $1 an acre. So he needed $1 million. Well, after being infiltrated, obviously people found out about the deal. The Boulé doing what it does, advisors to the king. They go and tell the king, hey, look at what they're trying to do over here. This is a lucrative deal for y'all. So at the behest of our Moton, he is now told to represent the United States and going over to Liberia and outbidding Garvey $5 an acre. So of course they're going to take the money. In addition to getting it 5 acres $1, 5 acres $1, which is $5 million, they have a lease, a 99-year lease. This 99-year lease is, I think, is up, I think, next year. I think it's due this year. 99-year lease. And we find that once the contract was won by Moton and he reports it back to the United States government, they sell the contract to Firestone. They sell the contract to Firestone. Firestone is established. It becomes, if you do the history of Firestone, at one time Firestone was the main rubber company in the world. They actually were based in Akron, Ohio. And we find that they, at one time, were robbing, well, still are, not at one time. They would use African children to sap the trees, working 20 hours a day. Think about that. You're an African child anywhere between the ages of 6 and 13, and you are standing next to trees, and you can see a picture there. Let me just try to blow it up a little bit better. You can see that there's a picture there with a cup under the tree. They're not going to show you the person there that's sitting there actually pulling it out. They make it seem like the sap just comes out. Kids were monitoring these acres 20 hours a day, taking the sap and then returning it and forming it into rubber and sending it over to America. They lived in shanty houses, the same houses they live in that were built 99 years ago. They're still living in there today. You talk about child labor laws, like they're still, and they've been brought to court and nothing's been done about it. So we're talking about still slavery happening right now in Liberia. And Liberia is considered America's stepchild, by the way, because allegedly, what is it? The point I want to make here is in was 1922 rather. Africans were, in fact, Abraham Lincoln wanted to take freed Africans who wanted to leave America and send them over to Liberia, but they wasn't just going to sit there and drop them off. They're like, no, you go over here and you cultivate this land, and we're going to tax y'all because we gave y'all freedom, so you're going to have to pay us. Right, so they went to a settlement called Monrovia in Liberia. Monrovia is named after the United States 5th president, John Monroe, who was also a slave master, although publicly he talked against, he was anti-slavery, but he had over 75 slaves. Okay, so this is what we're seeing is happening in this stage where we are roughly 45 years out of emancipation, trying to find ourselves, and we find that we're still getting screwed because there's always there's another plan for us that someone has. All right. So real quickly, I'm gonna take a pause for identification here. Station identification. I like to call it pay us some bills here. I want to play this little, if you haven't seen it before, I'm going to play this little clip, and then we'll get back into the session for tonight. Here we go.
This summer, unlock your potential with our summer workshop. Join our dynamic online courses, designed for everyone aged 13 to 75, starting June 1st through August 3rd with Mbwe Shangi of the Crypto Woke Financial Sustainability Movement. Dive into financial education for adults or gear up for success with financial education for student athletes. Teens and young adults can build their financial future, and everyone can explore the wonders of STEAM. For just $149.99, you get access and can invite 3 friends or family members to join you or choose their own course. That's for people for one low price. Workshops start June 1st and run through August 3rd. Sign up now and invest in your future.
Okay, yeah. So that was just a little something, y'all. I'm working on things here to get our story out. As you know that I love bringing information to our people. I have a summer workshop happening, so you saw the video, you saw the commercial. If it's interested you, please check us out at cryptowokemovement.com for the information about the summer course. Again, it's $149. Actually, up to 4 people. So you pay $149, and you can bring 3 more people to take the course. I have 4 different choices from the course. I have a financial literacy course for adults. This is 6 sessions over the summer, meeting bi-weekly. I also have a session for student athletes, a course also for regular students, and also a STEM program, a course that is, again, 6 sessions. So check it out if it interests you. All right. So back to where we were here. Now we're going to get into the experiences of, being Greek and what all that life is about, because we talk about the Boulé, but a lot of us don't even know about the Boulé, but we do know about Greek life. And so we have to understand that this is the level where, to get to the Boulé level, you have to be elite. You have to be at a point where you have great potential. This is something that is a secret. So, they don't really want people to know about it. Now, although they were outed in 1990 by Steve Coakley again, they're still pretty much under the radar. People don't know really much what they're doing. But everybody knows about fraternities and sororities and step shows and stuff like that. So before we get into that, I have this session. This is called to be or not to be Greek. And it's very important with that, because we have to start thinking about what we've associated ourselves with. And again, we did it without question, mainly because a Black person did it or showed us. So we didn't question. We thought it's Black. It must be good. But why wouldn't it be, right? But then when you find out that it's something different, we have to understand that, what Gerard said, that Wazango has mastered thievery, plagiarism, exploitation, and deception. We have to learn from our mistakes. Absolutely. That's what studying history is so important, to understand what's happened so we can stop, repeating that history. As they say, if you don't study history, you're doing to repeat it. And we've been doing that because we don't study history. We wonder why things are so messed up, and we want to complain, right? So we do have to shed our skin, as they were talking about the Wizard of Oz, or the Wiz, when they shed their skin and they saw a brand new day. That brand new day, it takes work to do it. It isn't just that easy. You just shed a layer. We have multiple layers of trauma, misinformation, etc. And we got to put in the work, because if we don't, it's going to continue to get worse for us, as it has been. All right. So I want to speak this to those that are considered African-centered, and we use this word Pan-African. And Pan, again, this disturbed me, because, again, I was one of that guys used to say, I'm Pan-African. I'm all, Pan, we think of Pan means universal. It's about the universal connection. But as with everything, it has a root. And if you don't understand the root, and if it's negative, then you're perpetuating the values of that word. So when we look at Greek history, we find that, it was crazy, y'all. And they deified the lifestyle they lived. They would screw anything with a hole. And Pan is an example. Pan is, the definition is, Pan was a god of flocks and herds, typically represented with the horns, ears, and legs of a goat on a man's body. His sudden appearance was supposed to cause terror similarly to that of a frightened stampeded herd. And the word panic is derived from his name. So Pan isn't about universal, coming together or collaboratives. It's about people being afraid, right? And Pan was all about screwing animals, bestiality. This is a picture of Greek art of their depiction of who Pan is. You can see him with his penis inside of the behind of a goat. This is how they live, y'all. And they're not ashamed about it. Okay? So we walk around, want to put on our dashikis or wear our kente cloth, and we want to say we're Pan-African. I'd change it. I just say I'm African-centered. It's more simple than that. I don't know how, unless centered means something other than centered. We know what Africa, we understand that point. I can say Alkebulan-centered. I could say that. But the point is that we have to understand where we're living right now. The type of words we use has a lot of power and significance. Right? So getting to that, to be to not to be Greek, we find that there's these again back to the Boulé in their history book on page 38. And again, every May they're reading their history book. They have to reread this. As I'm reading it to you now, they have to reread this book every May, right? So, oh yes, Sister Ami says, seems like this is where the term pansexual comes from. You're right. You're right. Factual, right? So we see that in their history book, again, the same book that they're reading. I got a copy of it. I've had it for a number of years. On page 30, I used it to write my book. Who is the Boulé? Oh, my bad. That's not where I want to go. Page 38, it says, in the building of the organization's plan, reliance was placed upon Greek history and tradition. The reasons of this action are not difficult to discover, for it is well known that the study of Greek civilization was basically an acquaintance with Western civilization. Although Greek culture had relationships with the culture of the Orient, page 38 of the History of Sigma Pi Phi, first of the Negro American Greek letter fraternities. So what he's saying is that they know that they're saying the Greeks are the foundation of history. We do know the history of the Greeks is they went in there and stole everything they had, then they claimed it as theirs, right? They're not even old enough to say that they're the vanguards of history, right? But then they'll say, oh yeah, but they also had relationships with the cultures of the Orient. The Orient means East, right? And when you think of Orient, you think Oriental, you think Asia, right? Not Africa. So they wouldn't dare say Africa, but they'll just say Orient. So it is East, and it is Africa is in the East. So you can't say that they're lying, but most people, the word association with the Orient isn't in Africa. So you're never going to connect those dots, right? The round table, this is what Charles H. Wesley said, who wrote the history book for the Sigma Pi Phi, for the Boulé. He said, the round table lives only in poetic life and history. They can live again in life, and we can make them live through us. It can continue as a dream, and it can continue through us. Here is a ninja saying that he wants to resurrect something King Arthur and the Round Table Group, the Knights Templar, known global white supremacists, known global assassins, and taking over of our land and our people. You got a ninja that says he wants to do the same thing, a black version of it. Okay. So at the core of Greek civilization is this term pederasty. And pederasty is, a term that a lot of us in our communities are now being forced to deal with, especially with the LGBTQ, ABCD, whatever they are called. And so, these are topics that, we have to really think about. Why is there this sudden push, this urge? Why is it that every show I watch on TV, a sitcom, a drama, whatever it is, if it's a black person, male or female, they're probably gay or a lesbian on every show. And their sex life has nothing to do with the show itself. They'll just do one scene to let you know, oh, this brother's gay. Or this woman, she mentions her wife. You know what I'm saying? Like, is that necessarily being a script? Because they're microdosing you with trying to make this normal. So pederasty, what Gerard said, what the fuck? These dudes were Clarence Thomas before Clarence Thomas. I say, facts, they were. They are. Clarence Thomas ain't got nothing on them. So pederasty is something that is huge because this goes back to the Greeks. And again, they didn't hide it. They loved it. They lived. This was their life and they were proud of it. This is what Plato said in the Symposium. This is, some of you probably read this in college, right? And didn't even catch it. He says that it is assumed without argument that pederasty alone can satisfy a man's highest and noblest aspirations, and the love between a man and a woman, when spoken of at all, is altogether inferior. A love between a man and a woman is inferior when it compares to a love with a man, right? He says the purely physical impulse whose sole object is procreation. So when we look at Greek history, we look at Greek civilization, it's no wonder the majority of the statues you see, they're all men. You rarely see any women. The lifestyle was men who were with men. Women were only used for procreation, only to make babies. Women didn't have a role other than that. If men could have babies, they wouldn't have had no use for women. They preferred to be with men. Okay? And pederasty, by definition, is the sexual acts involving not a man with a man, but a man with a boy, a man with a child. Okay? So we talk about Hollywood. We want to talk about Epstein. We want to talk about Diddy. We want to talk about, man, this is not new. This goes way back to Greek culture, and it has bled into American society. So we find that these secret societies also have embraced these acts as ways of, for whatever reason, to, I would say, to get you to submit and probably hold some dirt on you if you get out of hand, right? So Skull and Bones' purpose is to produce an alliance of good. This was in Esquire magazine, 1977. This is when Skull and Bones, very few articles were put out about them, but this one came out and it really like shed a light on who they are. This was put out by Ron Rosenbaum in Esquire magazine. The article was called Last Secrets of Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones' purpose is to produce an alliance of good men. Good men are rare of all societies. None is more glorious, nor greater strength than men with similar morals are joined in intimacy. In intimacy, y'all. Okay? In intimacy. So they're saying there's no better bond than to be with a man intimately. And that obviously is not just like we cool like that. It's more than that. You guys are slapping swords. Sister Bernice says in the King James Bible there is mentioned close to what you just read about a man and a woman. Okay. All right, that's good to know. So understand that this has been put out from ancient times to modern times. And if you do a little bit of digging, you'll find it's all over the place. If you go to the museums, you look up Greek philosophy, Greek history, you'll see it everywhere. I'm going to just show y'all some pictures so y'all can see. And I'm not making this up. I'm getting this off of their websites. I'm getting it from their museums. Okay, so let me just take me out of here, blow it up so you can see. Right? So as I mentioned, pederasty is the definition of sexual acts involving a man and a boy. You see here in this picture here, this is a grown man with a beard grabbing the hair of a young boy, pulling it back, and he's shoving his tongue down his mouth probably, or about to. Right? There's a degree of forced acceptance of what's been called gay pride. Today they'll call it that. Interestingly enough, eventually a line is tested and overthrown by a younger, more stronger one. To counter this usurp in traditional power, the European used homosexual molestation as a way to neuter this warrior instinct. So what am I saying here? When you think about a man who has a child, who has a son in particular, he knows that one day that son is going to grow to be his equal in strength or more. And if I am egotistical and narcissistic, that I don't want to give up my power, then I must find some way to neuter him or to get him to forevermore be under my power. And the best way you can do that is by raping them. If you make them your victim, they will always see you as someone in authority. So this is what men would do, is they would go ahead and have their jollies with these men, with these young boys, with the intention of controlling them so that they wouldn't come for their power, that they will always be under. And let's think about these mafia movies and stuff. You see these movies where the father is like, he's barely in the bed. Can't get out of bed. He's coughing. He got tubes all in him, but he curses his son out. And his son looking like, man, I would, but he won't do it. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, I'm not saying that that's what happened between them, but if you think about it in the world of nature, lions, if you're a lion and you have some cubs and they're male, you're going to have to fight them one day. And it ain't going to be a one-on-one either. Maybe a few of them. So, and if you lose, you're kicked out the pride and you're on your own and you die alone. Okay. So, Europeans see this as, you know, I want to hold on to my power as much as I can. So what is it that I can do? I'm going to mess with his mind, and I'm going to control it through his behind. All right. So this brings in the story of mentor. And I tell you, and I hope for all you that hear this, I really do hope that you take in stock of what I'm saying and rethink whenever you use this word, because we use this word so often and we're giving the wrong person glory for this, right? First of all, mentor was a person. He was a man. He was a living being. He was a Greek man, right? He lived, and he was a pedophile. And there wasn't nothing that stood out about him because all of them were pedophiles, okay? But mentor, the definition of mentor is someone that takes you under their wing, right? Shows you the way, right? Well, this is what white folks usually would do. So a mentor, by definition, is an advisor, a guide, a guru, a counselor, a consultant, confidant, and also a trusted friend, a counselor, a teacher, usually a more experienced person, right? But there is a story, historical story, to mentor that is tied to Odysseus. Odysseus was a Spartan warrior who entrusted his son Telemachus to mentor while he went away to battle. While he was gone, and mind you, the Spartan warriors, they were also gay. Okay, so you know, we saw Sparta or 300 or whatever those movies were. Like them dudes, they loved each other more than they did their wives and their children, and they would sleep together all the time. But anyway, so we have mentor who is now who's going to watch over Telemachus for Odysseus while he's away in battle, and he befriends him, and they create a relationship. Now, what I found was the way that relationships happen is it isn't that these old white men go in there and they pick the boy to make him be with them. What happens is they have to seduce them and court them. So they have to give them gifts and do gestures to try to get their attention. And it's up to the boy to decide whether he will accept those things. If he turns them down, then the man has to stop and he'll try to find another kid, right? But these boys are being neutered to, again, have this so-called mentor. So mentor, you know, again, befriended his friends. So he befriended his friend's son, had a sexual relationship with him, and turned him out, basically. So today we call people that help us find a way, we call, oh, my mentor, I'm a mentee, or what all these type of things are, and not realizing that this is all about a sexual relationship. This is about dominion. This is about mental dominion over your body and your mind, simply for manipulation. Okay, we find that the definition of pederasty started in Crete and spread throughout Greece, becoming part of Spartan culture and an important factor in Athenian upbringings. It was the practice of an older male courting a pubescent boy. The older man would woo the boy with gifts until the boy accepted or rejected the adult, thus choosing to wait for another. So the kid was knowing he was going to be courted and he's going to have to pick somebody. So, you know, it wasn't like, oh, I'm not going to pick anybody. He would have to eventually pick someone. If the man was accepted, they would enter into a sexual relationship in which the older man was always dominant and the boy was submissive. So he was always taking it up the butt. During this time, the older man was supposed to teach the boy important things for later life and adulthood. The man was a teacher, a protector, and a model for virtuous behavior. Really? Virtuous behavior. This is what they're saying. So they see this is this is not a bad thing. Raping young boys, manipulating their mind, they see that it's not a bad thing. And because they're writing this narrative, if you don't know any better, you accept it as normal. You won't question it, even though you don't feel it ain't right, but because everybody else is doing it, you accept it. Once the boy was considered mature enough, the relationship would end. He could then take on his own submissive boy if he chose. In modern society, this sounds highly immoral and sexually abusive, but the Greeks considered it a normal part of a boy's upbringing, a normal part of their upbringing. This stage was an important part in the transition from childhood to adulthood. So all the men were raping young boys. If you came up submissive, you were supposed to do the same thing for someone else. That sounds a lot like Greek pledging process. You know, you was pledged, I was hazed, so I'm going to haze you too. What was done to me is going to be done to you. All right. So ancient Greeks used to go to the gym. This is where they would, this was their club. This is where, when they want to go out to the club, their club was the gym. They would be in the gym, butt ass naked, sitting there looking at young boys and picking out who they were going to court. Right. So this is what is happening, to young people that, again, grow up to be older people that continue the perpetuation, that continues the cycle. Gerard says, as we said, etymology is important as these folks play hide and seek with the wordplay. Facts. I mean, I hope that you don't use the word mentor ever again. And when you do, I hope you use it to define what it really is. Right? I'm going to tell you the word that we can use in a second to replace it with. But again, ancient Greeks used to go to the gym naked as a tribute to the gods. The word gymnasium, the gym. Where are we going every day? I'm going to get a workout. We going to the gym, right? Was a school for naked exercise. And nowadays people are damn near naked in there anyway. But the point is, they will go there to get their swerve on with these young kids, right? So here's some pictures of, this is their artwork. This ain't us making this stuff up. This is their artwork in their museums. Okay. Sister Ami says, this reminds me of Diddy hosting his business meetings in the hot tubs butt naked. Exactly. Why, bro? Why? To create dominion, to make you subservient, to make you be quiet. Y'all saw that, well, we ain't gonna talk about Diddy. Maybe one day, but not today. But you can see the upper left corner. You see a young kid about to strap on or straddle on to, and if you see the little pecker that's coming out of the man sitting on a chair, he about to ride that. This is in their art, y'all. This is in their art. The second one to the right, you see a man with wings and another man holding him close, and their sword is their lifesavers is touching each other. On the bottom left, you see a man who is not only taking it from behind, but he's about to take it in his mouth. The next one under that, you see a man with another, again, you'll see men with beards, denoting that they are older, and the ones that are taking it are men with, or children rather, with no beards, clean shaven, right? So you'll see the one, the bottom left, the man that was, about to swallow something. And then the next one over in the red, you see an older man hunched over, can barely stand straight, but he's reaching down to the man's tentacles. Or the young, well, I would say young boy. In this case, he's a little stronger, but he's taller than him. But this is what's, again, in their artwork, y'all. My virgin eyes. Exactly. Again, another picture, the biggest picture you see on the far right, an older man touching his chin and also reaching for his penis. This is in their artwork. You go to museums, you'll see this. So Brother Marlimu Baruti, one of my Jegnas as well, wrote this book called Homosexuality and the Feminization of Africans. And he wrote this piece, and this is a passage that I thought was very important to note. Let me read it real quick. Author of Homosexuality and Feminization of African Males, Marlimu Baruti, shows this practice evolved from European men who wanted to maintain power over their cubs, in this case their sons, while having very little use for their women. Baruti states, were the Greeks and Romans so aggressively violent that they had to use the ritual of homosexual sodomization to control the ambitions and egos of their male youth? Was pederasty, or the sodomization of boys by men, viewed by Greeks and Romans as a normal and necessary rite of passage to control and direct young males into manhood, while at the same time removing the threat of the boys taking power away from man? Were European boys forced to submit to being sexually violated? or did they willingly seek out what they surely knew would be a painful and compromising anal entry by an adult's male penis in order to secure his love and learning? So they knew if they wanted to learn anything, they had to take it up behind. We can start to answer this by stating that then as now, European men saw everyone else, including boys, as a threat to their power. So this is all about white men not wanting to give up their power, not even from their own children. And they'll do their own people. So I didn't come up with this, but I'm glad brother Dr. Wade Nobles came up with this. Another term that we should be using instead of instead of mentor is Jegna. Jegna is a more appropriate word. Dr. Wade Nobles introduced this word, and I would offer that you choose to use this instead. Okay, the definition of Jegna is, and Jenok is plural form, is one has been tested in struggle or battle. A Jegna has been tested in struggle or battle. Someone who demonstrates fearlessness, one who has the courage to protect their people, culture, and way of life, shown diligence and dedication to our people, produced an exceptionally high quality of work, and dedicated themselves to the protection, defense, nurturance, and development of our young by advancing our people, place, and culture. That to me is someone that I would love to be take on the practices of. I would love to have someone show me the way in that respect, not in the way that we have been taught that we see Europeans have done it. Okay. Again, this is all about history that they don't want us to know about. So how does this spill into Black culture? Well, it has, because we have the adoption of Greek life. Now, this is where some of the Black Greeks that are watching this may get in their emotions. And again, I beckon that you remove yourself from this, because you didn't know. Had you known, you probably would have made a different decision. I know I probably would have. Most likely I would have. But then again, things happen the way they are. Had I not, getting involved, I'm able to share the experience to help other people from help other people make a better decision, right? So we find that we had Phi Beta Kappa, who then emerged as Illuminati, then came out as they created a Black version as a line of defense, the Boulé, and then the Boulé created their children, the 4 fraternities and 4 sororities, right? And here's what we find, that there's a lot of, I can't really blame the craziness that's happening in fraternities and sororities nowadays. For one, fraternities have subsidiary, or they have auxiliaries rather. Auxiliaries are kind of like, when I went to University of Pittsburgh, the Alphas, we had Alpha Angels. The Alpha Angels were the little sisters to the brothers, right? The Alpha Angels weren't in sororities, but mostly they would be in an auxiliary first, like their freshman or sophomore year, if they didn't go directly to pledging a sorority. But they would be in this, and then they would go to a sorority. Also, sororities would have, auxiliaries for men. Because I had mentioned in the first episode that I came to Pitt ready to be an Alpha, and the chapter wasn't there, so I had to wait 2 years, and I became what was called a mid. Mid is men interested in Delta, so I was an auxiliary for Delta Sigma Theta, and so basically I got pledged by Qs. So I got a dose of being, what their pledge process was. So at the time I was part Q, you could say, but I wasn't obviously officially. But nevertheless, what we find is that now that we're in this era of LGBTQ, ABCD, 1, 2, 3, whatever, is that we have these auxiliaries are wanting to have people from other genders join. I'm sorry, not the fraternities. They want to join the fraternities. Gay men want to join fraternities. Lesbians want to join sororities. And they're like, nah, we're not having that. More particularly in fraternities, right? And so for those that aren't allowed to join, they've now created their own. They've created their own sororities and fraternities, and we're finding that they're actually doing the very same thing that the others were doing. It just came under another name, right? So I find that there's one called Omega. What is it? Omega Psi Omega. No, not Omega. Omicron Psi Omega. That's in the upper right corner. Omicron Psi Omega is a girls' sorority, a lesbian fraternity, not sorority. I'm sorry. Lesbian fraternity made up of lesbians who think that they're Qs. So they actually, their colors aren't purple, but they have gold and they wear camouflage fatigues and they step and they bark and all this kind of stuff. It's crazy. These are all like, really thick, manly women that want to be in a fraternity, but they couldn't join the Qs. And I could imagine what their hazing is like too. It's probably a little bit more aggressive than your usual, your AKA or your Delta Sigma Theta pledging process. On the bottom left, you also see these are men who want to be AKAs. You see them having the flower, same hand signals that you see in the sisters above. Men that want to be AKAs that have not been allowed to, so they create their own, right? And I actually think if we talked about the history of the Greeks and how, homosexuality was a norm. So they're actually not wrong in wanting to be Greek because Greeks were gay. So I would say that, BGLOs are really for people that are, homosexual, to be honest. And this may cause some flames, whatever. But if you follow the timeline of history, this is exactly what they're doing. So why would you be mad about them wanting to join that? These are, again, the sisters right there of, what was it, Omicron Psi Omega, I'm sorry, and their fatigues. And they look like, if you first glance, you would think they were Qs, right? Stories are coming out now. There's a story of me, an openly gay member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. This guy, George Johnson, he's a flamboyant member of Alpha Phi Alpha. And they're coming out and speaking about why they're being discriminated against. And I actually think, so you get the fraternity sororities that really don't want to talk about it because, again, we have a stigma. We have a stigma. And of course, LGBT community is beating down on us to accept them. And, I personally, who you sleep with is none of my business. I really don't care. Just don't try to push that stuff on me that I got to accept you. I mean, you don't accept me. The point is that I don't really care who you choose to sleep with. And these pronouns of calling me this, I'm not playing that game. You know what I mean? If you want to dress and be this, that's fine. But the point is that everyone's so like off radar what's really important. Everyone wants to talk about how they want to have their issues addressed, their sexuality addressed. I care less about who you choose to. If you like to slap dicks, then go ahead and do your thing. It's none of my business. You know what I'm saying? But they have to make you, well, I want you to acknowledge that I do. I don't have to acknowledge that. That's not part of my lifestyle. So I'm not interested. Okay, so that's that part. So now I want to talk about the branding and the hazing. And, again, we're talking about how these things get passed down, where they learn from. Someone just come out and just do it. This is what we find are happening through history, and we pick up these things, right? We pick up these things. So this is a picture on the far left. You see of an African getting off these slave ships, and then you can see in that far left corner there's a slave ship. So they're just reaching land, and as soon as they get there, they're branding them, they're marking them as someone's property. All right. The next picture is a picture of myself. There's a picture of myself. I got branded on my left arm. Now, I did get branded for a different reason. I don't know what everyone's reason is, but mine was for different. When I pledged, I realized that I was about to go through a physical experience, and I wanted to pay homage to our ancestors who experienced physical bondage, beating downs, and all those type of things. And so I felt me pledging was going to basically give me an inkling or just a taste of, to show respect of what they've done. Because what I was going to experience was but a drop in an ocean of what they experienced, right? But had I known, I would not have used the Greek letters. I would have put a thinker or something else there. But you can see on the next picture next to there, that's how brands are created. They use Brother Gerard said, "Damn, you going in deep tonight." I told you, bro. Like I this is what this is about. This is about ways to freedom. I'm freeing myself by sharing this with y'all as well. You know what I mean? Because it needs to be told so that someone else perhaps can see this and make a better decision, or at least you have a counter before you make your decision. But you see the next picture over is the wire hanger, how our brands were made. And the funny thing about, I got some funny stories, man. When we decided to get branded, I was with this other brother, and he wanted to get a brand on his chest. And he's like, "Look, because what you do is you take a wire hanger and you fasten it to whatever you want to make it into. For me being Alpha, we made it into a dancing A, and then you would heat it up under a flame. You put it under a flame on the stove or whatever, and then you would, put it on the skin, and you would let it sit there for a few seconds. And that part didn't really hurt. It felt like a pinch, like something that was like a hard, like someone took your skin and turned it and pinched it. That was a little bit of a pain. And it smelled like bacon. That was crazy, because it's funny because I had just stopped. I was 21 and I had just stopped eating pork and meat. And man, I smelled bacon and I was like, yo, like this, I was going through it. But anyway, so I took 13 hits to make 3 letters. I have a Phi A. Well, I got a shirt on, you can't really see it, but A Phi A was put on my arm. The brother that was there with me, he wanted to get it on his chest, and he's like, okay. So, and he was kind of like, he was a little shook. He wasn't sure he wanted to do it. I was high, like, no, I'm doing this. I was focused. Let's do this. And so he was drinking and he was all like inebriated, but he's also still antsy. And he's like, look, you can't move when we give you this, when we put this on you, because if you move, it's going to rip the skin. So he sat in a chair, and someone came from behind him and put their arms around his waist to hold him still. And they said, bro, do not move. If you move, then, the burnt part, this hanger is going to move with you. So the dude put it into him, and he immediately, he went back like that, and it just ripped down his chest. And everybody's like, oh, damn, right? And so I saw him. He was from another chapter. I saw him years later, and he had this big old keloid on his chest. Like you couldn't even see the Alpha dancing A. You couldn't see none of that. So, but the point is that, people do it to, show like that they pledge. It's to show some sort of rites of passage, manhood, whatever. Part of that was me. I had ego. But my initial reason for doing it was to pay homage, because I know that when we got off the slave ships, the first thing they did was they would brand you, and you were now someone's property. So not that I want to be someone's property, but again, it was kind of like me having an assimilation. I just wanted to show homage because I was going through my own rites of passage of re-Africanizing myself and not even realizing it at the time. Okay. Here's the other part of hazing. So we're talking about the paddle. Now, interestingly enough, I got to start out with saying this. And this is what's going to really, and I'm going to, let me preface this. Although I pledged a Greek lettered fraternity, let me put the camera on me so y'all can see that I ain't lying here. Although I pledged a Black Greek lettered organization, there was not one time that there was any sexual acts in my pledge process. And most people's pledge processes, I would say there aren't. I know for mine it wasn't, because if there was, I'd have been out of there. I don't play any of that. And I'm sure that my line brothers were the same. We were not going to put up with that shit. So, we don't deal with, we're heterosexual, none of that stuff. No, we did have some rituals where we were naked sometimes, but we weren't touching each other. It was just a, part of a ritual. But as far as doing any fondling or any touching or none of that stuff. So just to be clear. Right. So I'm saying that to say, because one of the ways when you're getting pledged that is talked about a lot is the process of being called taking wood. Now, when you hear taking wood, you know it has the double meaning. Taking wood means you're getting paddled with this paddle, right? This wooden paddle. But taking wood also means, somebody giving you the D, right? So, hold on one second. This is Tommy says, this is where my dad got this from when we were about to get our butts faked. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. The paddle was something that was, and it kept you in line because that shit hurt, right? So, you see, this one says, assume the position. And the position that you would take is you're supposed to, at least when I pledged, you would have to spread your legs, bend over, your right hand would touch the inside of your left ankle. And then you use your left hand to hold your nutsack to protect it because you could get hit. So you would cuff it and hold that, right? And that was, you were in the hole. Another connotation, sexual connotation, you're in the hole. About to take wood, right? This is what they called it. And at the time, we didn't think nothing about it because nothing sexual was happening. But when I started understanding the history of what wood is and what it meant, I was like, oh, shit. So this was when I started doing the research for the Boulé. I had already pledged, already got out of the fraternity. So this is later on. So I didn't know this going in. But the original word for hazing was called fagging. And we know the root word of fagging is fag, right? Fag in Europe is a cigarette, but it's also someone who's homosexual. This dates back to the 1600s of England, where there were white kids that would go to schools and they would haze the underclassmen. And they would call them fags, which, was a connotation of them being weak and being, inferior, etc. Well, once people started migrating to America, it made it over to America. It made it to, these are these rich white families now that were going to public schools, and it trickled down into the streets. So we would, when we grew up, you could call somebody a faggot and they was ready to fight, or they would, they would be crying. You can't even use that word now because everybody's so, sensitive and whatnot. They could call it bullying or whatever. But nevertheless, we find that fagging or hazing didn't originate on collegiate campuses. It originated on the plantations. On the plantations, y'all. So the first plantations would haze, meaning not just the whip, but they would actually use this same paddle to beat you into a pulp. So what they would do is they'd take the paddle and they would cut holes into it so that if they hit the flesh, some of the flesh would go, like pop through the skin, through the hole of the paddle. So you would have all these holes, and that would create bruises and blisters. So they would paddle you behind in the butt until you would bleed, right? Well, let me give you a story what happened to me when I pledged. So I mentioned before in part one that at the time when I finally pledged, hazing was actually abolished during nationals. You were told not to in order to be in a fraternity, you could get your letters in 48 hours. Basically, you have a weekend initiation and through the graduate chapters. And most people in graduate chapters, they're people that didn't pledge. They're skaters. We call them skaters because they did their paper. They just signed their name and they were in. So because of the lawsuits, because people were dying from being overhazed, being beaten up, put in hospitals, having alcohol abuse, that there were all these cases against the nationals. All of the fraternities and sororities had these court cases and they couldn't afford to pay for all of these settlements. So they banned hazing, but hazing didn't go away. It went underground. So me and my line brothers wanted to be in a fraternity badly. It was like, okay, well, we want our respect. So we want to learn. We want to earn that. We want to earn our letters, but we know that nationals is the only way we can get it first. So we went through a 48-hour process in the first weekend to get our letters from nationals. We got our letters in 48 hours, and then we went and pledged for 6 weeks with underground. And no one knew about it. We made sure that no one knew about it because they thought that we were paper as well. But here's what happened when we were with graduate chapter, that 48 hours. That first 48 hours, that first, half a day, they were like, we had to sign papers. They had to sign waivers that said if anyone physically touches you or harms you or tries to harm you, you can sue them. And we all signed it, thinking, okay, fine, it's gonna be 40 hours. We still gonna go underground. It's like we're gonna do what we gotta do to get our letters, and then we out. And then we're gonna go and pledge underground for 6 weeks. So what happened is, soon as we signed those papers, Nationals put us, the graduates rather, they put us through a ritual that evening. That evening, these are and the graduate chapter consists of people that are like in their 40s. Now we're like in our 20s. So these are older men in their 40s, 45, 50. Graduate chapter in Pittsburgh, and we were a single letter chapter, Omicron, Bloody Hills, what we were called. So we had a lot of respect. So of course we didn't want to disrespect it and not pledge. That's why we were going to pledge after. But anyway, we had these graduate guys come in, and we were at this church, and we were in the basement, and they called my name. And at the time we were holding this brick. This brick was supposed to be our name. We had our name on the brick. We had to hold it like this for like hours, right? And so of course your arms are hurting and whatnot. And you're going, all right, cool. This is what, we're going to do something. Okay, cool. We're going to do something. We're going to earn a little bit. So I get called into the basement. And as I'm coming, I hear, I'm hearing swats and I'm hearing people groaning and whatnot. I'm like, what's going on, right? And I'm thinking, okay, they can't be hitting nobody because they told us if anybody hits us, we get to sue them. So I'm like, maybe they just trying to scare me. So I walk down. The stairs is dark, and they're doing chants or whatever. Is some ritual stuff. I'm like, okay, so this is a set. A set is where you get hazed. So I'm told to assume the position. I'm thinking all along, okay, they're gonna play this out, but it's not gonna really happen because again, they told me that if they touch me, I could sue them. So I grab my left ankle with my right hand. I bend over, grab my right ankle, use my left hand to cover my, my nutsack. Boom! I mean, like I got hit so hard and so many times, and I had on these black, they were Guess jeans, I think. I had on these black jeans. I think they was Levi, one of them. And we got hazed by these old men who took turns with that paddle, like they were just going in on us like we did something wrong to them, and beat us so bad. I remember when we were done that my behind was so swollen from the paddle hitting me that my pants had busted open and they were really tight on me, right? And so I'm gonna put this up. She says mentoring me, I'm sister on me, but only verbally, physically, no sexual, nothing sexual. But nevertheless, they were physically beating me. These men who said that if anyone does, you can sue them. So they understood that, it was like a double entendre. If you want to be in, we know what you're not supposed to do. But if you really real about this, you're gonna let us do what we're gonna do here. And so they hazed us pretty bad for 48 hours, or 36 hours. So we were pretty beat up. And then when we showed up with undergrad and went another 6 weeks, we were all for it because we were like, this is what it takes. We've been wanting this for 2 years. We've been fighting to get the chapter back. So we was all about that. But the point I'm making is that when you look at the paddle and they call it taking wood, they also call the paddle a phallus. A phallus, and we know a phallus is a penis. So when someone says assume the position, it may not be physically happening to you, but there are some subliminal connotations that are going back to the days of Greece. Okay, that has now filtered into the Black community, and Black heterosexual, supposedly, you would think they are. And I'm not saying that I think they were, but again, we're taking some of the tendencies and putting into our rituals of male rites of passage, which I thought was very wrong. Right. Here's a couple of other examples of people that have been hazed that you should see. You'll get a kick out of. 1 second here.
Okay, y'all, so a few days ago, I did a live stream on YouTube about this girl right here in this white shirt. She showed up to a Greek picnic in DC and was pretending to be an AKA, and they politely took her paraphernalia. If you want to hear my thoughts on the whole situation, check out this video on my YouTube channel. But I'm bringing this up because I got a very interesting comment up under this video. Y'all check this out. All right, this person says, one time in college, I was dating a Q and they were having a barbecue at a park. He took off his jacket to go help with setting up tables and such. He gave it to me to hold. Later, some of his other frat brothers came and started very aggressively questioning me about why I had that jacket, then proceeded to try to yank it from me, nearly dragging me to the ground. I had no context that this was a sensitive thing, but likewise, my boyfriend had given it to me. Well, he was a big deal in the org and almost jumped the guys who were hounding me. He made them apologize, but in hindsight, this was very scary and illogical. And I'm a woman. I'm not perping that I'm a Q. What? Makes me mad right now in hindsight. One of the points I made in the video was like, I get that this girl was wrong. I'm a Christian, so I don't believe that it's good to lie or like impersonate or break the law or things like that, right? But because Greeks have a reputation for doing this type of thing, their words, not mine.
Let's not perp our way or try to perp our way into a sorority or fraternity, because you're just going to get blacklisted, blackballed, beat the F up.
It just kind of makes me wonder, like, why do organizations that pride themselves on being Christian and pride themselves on their community service find their paraphernalia to be more sacred and valuable than humans?
Let me just be clear too, though. Fraternities and sororities are not Christian organizations. Okay, there are Christians that are members of fraternities and sororities, but not everybody's Christian, and they're not pushing God and Jesus. There are some, but that's not the preface of what the fraternities and sororities are. There are people that speak against the Boulé and they use religious doctrine as their reason. I don't do that. I'm talking about the history outside of religion, because religion is, that's another trap as far as I'm concerned. But this is just to show like how it's like turf wars, like if you wear the wrong colors, just like if you were, in LA and you on the wrong side of Inglewood or whatnot, or Long Beach or wherever, and you had on blue and you weren't supposed to be wearing blue and you was wearing red, you could lose your life. Like they take it that serious. And I actually saw fraternities and sororities on a collegiate level as gangs, where they're basically sitting over here and, based upon your color that you choose to wear, it decides on how they're going to deal with you. Brother Gerard says, do to you, brother, for denouncing BGLO, do out to you, brother, for denouncing BGLOs, and praise due to all preachers who denounce the Catholic Church for their treacherous past. That takes some courage to stand up and speak out. Not many would, not many have, not many still will. But it's important that we talk about this because there's a lot of folks that don't. So let's touch on another piece here that I saw of another part where brother was hazed. He's a Q. And this is an example of how you look sometimes when you actually were getting hazed. Here we go.
Back up, because you sent me some pictures that were pretty disturbing. Shahid sent me some pictures of what he looked like. Was this immediately after initiation?
Yeah, these pictures came right after initiation. You can be hazed in this way or any other ways, So it's not like, these bruises and stuff happen on one night throughout the whole entire process. This happens multiple times. This just happened to be the day I took the picture.
So if you can't take this, then turn away for a quick second. But here they are. So these are pretty bad. I mean, when you sent this to me originally, I could not believe it. I honestly could not believe it.
Yeah, it's and you can kind of see, like, I don't know if you can zoom in, but on that left picture, you can almost see like a big handprint, like towards the middle. So this is only hands, being slapped against your body, etc. And people of my skin complexion are a lot more sensitive. This is a lot more visible. But this is just being slapped left and right, with different hands, etc. And some people, it can get a lot worse than that. You get hit in your legs, with different stuff, different items at times. Even another form of hazing is, just a more common form of hazing is being paddled on the butt. So your butt can look just as bad as that does, if not worse. For people like myself, it may be so bruised it's blue or green, or you can develop blood clots, etc. So it gets pretty tense,
So, that's kind of like, what you go through to get this so-called respect, to be in this brotherhood. I'm gonna speak a little about that in a second, but before I go there, I want to do a summarization of what we've been talking about so far in adopting these mentalities here, Greek mentalities, is that this is the side that many Black Greeks hide. They don't want you to know about. I'm going to play this next clip that should be disturbing to you. That really, I never liked when I saw this, and I didn't understand why they would do this. But then when I started doing the history of Greece, it made sense. I got it now. I was like, okay, this is why they're doing what they're doing. So check this out. Y'all see that brother just pulled his pants down? Let me go back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, I want you to play this in your mind. What if you saw these same brothers in this, all these Black men together, some pulling their pants down, but they didn't have any Greek letters on them? What would you think they were? You would absolutely think that they were homosexual, right?
But when she been over, I wrote my shit over and gave her a bone of his own. All right, she was a she a cute dog, a she a cute dog. Thank you, thank you, thank you too, nasty dog. Say, oh.
So that's just to give you an idea. Like, if you know anything about prison, and I have been grateful, I still knock on wood that I've never been, but I was actually had the privilege of speaking with a brother, working with some kids, some STEAM, teaching STEAM, and this brother, he actually has been to prison. He worked at Rikers as a correctional officer, and he was basically telling you about the experiences in prison, and that when we talk about sagging, right? When we talk about how, which is, still big in our community, right? Of men in the far right corner, bottom right corner, they're sagging their pants down below their buttocks, right? Yeah, like Sister Nefer said, walking around ass out around men with your ass out, right? She also said they call them thunderclaps. Dark-skinned pledges get it worse because their scars don't show. Why were they walking around? Why are they waiting around ass out, right? That was, and it's the thing. You think of a mega man as, strong and powerful and all that, but he's also walking around with his ass out. So when I go to the prison connotation here, analogy, is that in prison, they take your belt because they don't want you to harm yourself or to use it as a weapon. So you're constantly trying to hold your pants up. So that was one reason why, pants may sag. But also, when you're in the free world, if your pants are sagging, you can't run. If you start to run, you're going to continue to trying to pull your pants up because of, obviously, they're below you behind. You're going to eventually fall. But what it really connotates is when you're in prison, when your pants is below your behind, there's a situation. If you go in, and you usually go in by yourself, and people are going to test you immediately. This is what I was told from the correctional officer who used to work at Rikers Island for 12 years. And he says that, they're going to test you. Either you're going to fight or you're going to bitch out. And if you bitch out, if you get beat up, there's going to be someone's going to step in and say, yo, leave him alone. I got you. Bro. I'll take care of you. I'll make sure that they don't mess with you. Right. So you're thinking, thank you, bro, for helping me. Because I didn't, I don't know what's going on. You're afraid, who to trust, whatnot. This guy is mentor. This guy is saying, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to show you around and show you the way. But at the same time, I own you. And everyone needs to know that I own you. So how do you do that? You have to walk around with your pants below your behind. Okay. So there is no coincidence. This is something that is passed down and is now bled into our communities, and then it's been blown up to even greater proportions because now it's it's raw dog, and it's like there's no you just got to get in where you fit in, to be honest. And this is crazy because we see these free black men, educated black men, talented 10th men that want to walk around in step shows like in the far left, ass out, and thinking that that's cute, thinking that that's a form of masculinity. When you're showing your rear end, meaning it's kind of like an invitation, right? And when you look at the history of Greece, as we talked about, well, we see where they get this shit from. We see how I see how it got here. Okay, so I want to, before we end up here, I just got about another 15 minutes, y'all. I'm hoping you're enjoying what you're hearing. If you are, please feel free to like and subscribe. It helps me to continue doing this information, sharing this with you all. Also, if you don't mind, if you feel like it's also worthy of something that you would like to give a donation of any amount, $1, $20, $5, $50, $100, $1,000, you could donate to my Cash App at bit.Marley. You can see there on the bottom scroll there, or you can send it through PayPal, paypal.me/DGTimes. Giving thanks. So look, I was an Alpha from 1991 to 1997. And my experience, and my pleasure experience, again, I went through some things. We were physically hazed by out-of-towners all the time. I had people like from the depths of their mucus-filled lungs and just hot poop in my face, on my hair, on my rub it in, and I had to take all that shit. I almost got kicked offline because my dean had grabbed my neck, and I had a relapse from something that happened to me in childhood that I wanted to try to whoop his ass, and I almost got my ass kicked offline. But the physical activity never stopped, and I didn't have a problem with that part. I don't mind earning, even though I would do when I pledged folks, I didn't do any physical. I didn't hit you. I just got in your mind. I dealt with the mental. But some people felt that was the best thing they could do, was to make you physically work for stuff. And I think to a certain degree, it helps you to know that you can go beyond what you think you can, right? So I understand that part. So I don't hold any begrudgingly feelings about that. It was a choice I made. I wanted to be in it, so I had to learn that stuff. When we crossed over, however, when it came time to cross, we were supposed to walk over the burning sands of Egypt. That's what people call it. That's why some brothers call their line brothers sands, because sands is associated to the sands of Egypt that you're supposed to burn, the burning sands of Egypt, you're supposed to walk over to when you cross over, when you pledge, when you come from a pledgee to now a member, you're called, you walk over the burning sands. Now, I later learned through a ritual, through masonry, that actually that's incorrect. That's actually incorrect for us to be being happy to be calling ourselves sands and burning over burning sands of Egypt. There is a ritual that is shared between Masons, and they ask you a question of, did you come by foot or camelback? And if you answer by foot, what they're referring to is, when you got here, did you cross the sands on foot, or did you cross it riding a camel? And if you say you crossed by foot, then you are not worthy of that degree in masonry, and you're sent back. Now, what are they referring to? What they're referring to is the fact that if you've walked across the burning sands, you are actually mimicking the acts of Adam and Eve when they were kicked out of Eden. And they were forced to walk out of Africa over the burning sands, escorted by the soldiers who were on camelback. So they rode camels, and they made the ones that were what's the word I want to say? The ones that are being punished had to walk, and they rode camelback. So when we're talking about how we're pledging and we're crossing the burning sands, we're actually being Adam and Eve, being kicked out of Eden, and didn't even realize it, because we don't do word association, we don't do history, we don't understand the timeline of things. So actuality of, it's not a good thing to be walking across the burning sands, right? Sister Nefer says that's again one of their principles: manhood, Greek perversion, black wash. I didn't understand how you abuse someone and expect them to call you brother. Exactly. The brothers that were overzealous on beating up on me when we crossed, I had no love for them. Because I was like, yo, you took that shit personally. I didn't even know you like that. And you were coming beating up on me. And I had a confrontation with one of them, like, yo, I think you OD'd on me. And he was like, well, no, man, I was just doing what was done to me. And that's the thing. That's how hazing got out of hand, because most people will do what was done to them and then some, because they kind of enjoy it. For those that enjoy it, they're going to go overzealous about it. They're going to continue hitting you and continue doing things because they can, because you're going to sit there and let them do it. Okay. Now, a lot of people say, well, I would never join a fraternity because, yeah, well, I'm going to sit there and let myself get beat up by anyone. Again, it's whatever, you're comfortable with. My goal was I wanted to be a part of a fraternity, which I thought was a brotherhood. And I wanted to also earn, because I didn't have a father. I didn't have any brothers. I wanted to, that was my best vehicle. I knew how I could get manhood out of it, outside of playing sports. So for me, I was willing to put myself through physical challenges to get what I was looking for. Okay. So that was the whole goal of, being in a fraternity. So now comes 1996, and I reach my brethren. He's like, let's go down to West Virginia University. There's a speaker I want you to hear about, Steve Coakley. Steve Coakley is speaking, and he's talking about the Boulé. And I'm like, all right, cool, word. So I had already had a distaste of being in the fraternity by then, because what I learned is that in Alpha specifically, they specialize in leadership. Well, if you specialize in leadership, that means you're making a whole bunch of leaders. There's no one to follow. So we were always butting heads because everybody wanted to be the leader. And I was just like kind of tired of it. You know what I mean? I was like, this ain't what I really thought it was. All it is step shows and parties and beefing. And, just to me was like, there's got to be more to life to that. So I was really looking for a way out. So when I didn't go to Coakley knowing what he was going to talk about, I was into looking at lectures, because again, KRS-One had came 1991. So I was already doing lectures and going to see people speak. So I went to see Coakley, not even knowing he talked about the Boulé. But when he did, I thought he was talking directly to me. And just like when I talked about the episode 3 with ayahuasca and mushrooms, how I went back to my room and threw my Bible away and all that stuff. Same scenario with Coakley. I went back and I was like, I can't be an alpha no more. I can't be an alpha because I'm considering myself to be African. I can't be an African and a Greek. It's oxymoronic. And I didn't know it up until then. Didn't know anything about that connotation, that history. So my thought was, okay, I'm going to get out of the Boulé. Get out of Alpha, but I'm going to try to bring my brothers with me. I'm going to try to bring my line brothers with me. So, of course, I took notes from Coakley that night, got his number. We actually brought him to Pittsburgh to do a couple of speaking events as well. And I was knee deep into this information, listening to all his lectures. His lectures were like 4 to 6 hours. And I was in their front row taking notes. And we'll go to the street and tell people, because again, I had a magazine at the time too. So I'm like, I'm writing what I'm learning, because and with his permission, because he wasn't a writer. He said, you go ahead and write, because I just do video. I'm like, that's fine. So I go to try to get this information out to my line brothers, and no shade, but they decided that wasn't their thing. Some of them, African-centered, but I would say not African-centered enough to give up their letters. Me, I was like, I'm still going to do it. And it kind of made me enraged, because I felt, oh, damn, okay, I'm just not going to fade to black and not let anybody know why I'm doing this. So I said, I'm going to be a public spectacle about this. So I'm on campus letting people know that I am no longer a Black Greek, because everybody knew me as a Black Greek. Everybody knew me as the Alpha guy, that I loved Alpha. And so I decided that I was going to let people know why I was getting out of Alpha. I actually did lectures on campus about the Boulé, because I wanted people to know this information so desperately. It wasn't about ego. It was about, damn, y'all need to know this shit, because I didn't know this, and we've been lied to, yo. So my goal was to try to share this information with as many of our people, and hopefully they could make a decision for themselves, right? Sister Kidra says, funny thing is you fought to get them there, then you fought to expose. Exactly. And that was the thing. It's like, before anything else, I'm African. I love our people undyingly, but I am African first. And I'm like, I realized that I have been lied to. And I realized that most of us have been lied to, and most of us may never know if I don't say nothing. And it wasn't about me and what I know. I'm sharing what I'm learning to help you decide if you want to continue to learn this as well, right? And maybe we can learn together. So anyway, me and Coakley's relationship was short-lived. If you know anything about Steve Coakley was one that didn't have great relationships with people. He didn't trust a lot of people for whatever reasons, and he started putting out rumors about me wanting to try to replace him, which I couldn't understand why. I respected the brother. I gave him homage every time I talked about stuff, but I would get calls from people in different parts of the country. Yo, Coakley out here talking about you, man, saying that you're trying to replace him. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I confronted him. We had a confrontation in Harlem. He claimed he didn't know me. So I was like, all right, fine. And I broke bread with the brother. We met, and this is not to shit on his grave or nothing like that. It's just to tell you the real and honest thing. I again respect him for his works, but I knew in the end that he didn't see me as someone that could be a camp comrade. He saw me as, I guess, competition. And unfortunately, that happens. It happened to me with Ivan Van Sertima as well. It also happened with a couple other historians, and I just couldn't understand it because I'm in my 20s and 30s, and all I'm trying to do is push the needle with the work that you're doing so that people like me and people younger than me will get this message in case they don't hear from you, they hear from me or people like me. That was my goal. But again, I understand this is how they eat. So that was probably, how they took it as, is here's this young cat this young lion trying to take my work or trying to do what I'm doing and, take food off my table. So that's possible. So before I got out, I decided I wanted to make a change within. Being an alpha, I was like, you know what? I'm going to hit nationals because maybe y'all don't know about these things. Maybe y'all don't know about the history of, the Sphinx. It's not called the Sphinx. It's called Hermaket. Maybe you don't know about the mirror and all this comedic stuff as I'm getting my knowledge on. This is like 1996. So again, I'm knee deep into understanding and re-Africanizing myself. And I'm trying to understand why these historical Black organizations aren't talking about Africa. They just talk about Black stuff. They're not talking about Africa. And we come from there. So why aren't they? And when they do talk about Africa, it's in bits and pieces. So I was like, well, maybe they don't know. So I wrote nationals a letter, national headquarters of Alpha Phi Alpha, a letter, letting them know everything I learned from Coakley and then some. And just trying to, say, well, did you know about the Boulé? And I got the president's name and directed a what is it called? Postage paid or whatever, directly to him. And 2 weeks later, the letter came back, return to sender, but I knew it was open, and it was like a paper I had wrote him. It was about like a 10-page paper I wrote him, and you could tell because I stapled the edges that they were folded. So somebody read it and folded it and pasted it or whatever. So I knew someone read it, and it was returned to sender. So I knew at that point I had no other choice than to renounce my membership. So I sent Nationals a letter denouncing my membership to Alpha Phi Alpha, which they gladly received. But again, that was my experience in being an alpha and leaving it because I realized that I couldn't be both. And I wanted folks to know why I did it. And so that was when I wrote it. I had a 7-part series online from 1995 to 2007. 2013, I'm sorry, on the Boulé. So people get that information. And then I decided I was going to write the book, The Boulé, and I put that in 2018. The other encounter I had that I want to talk about is with Asa Hilliard. Asa Hilliard, I learned because I had gotten hold of when I was still befriended with Coakley. He told me about the roster. And when I started writing about the Boulé, I started getting hits all around the world from people in support and interest. So I had put out a plea if someone could send me the history roster of the chapters. And Coakley, he wouldn't give them to me. He said, I only give them to you if you let me. He pretty much wanted to take over my magazine, The Ghetto Times. He was like, if you let me be the president, blah, 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 and I'm going to control what information comes out. I was like, no, not doing that. So unfortunately, that's how we fell out. And he decided to stop sharing information with me. And so I had to find it elsewhere. So someone actually sent me both the history book and inside the history book had their roster up until 1994. So I spent personal time to type in all 5,000 names and put them online. They're still online today. If you go to my site, theghettotimes.com, you look up the Boulé in the roster, you'll see All these names, rosters up to 1994. I've been trying to get the latest one to update it, but it's hard to come by. But nevertheless, you can get an idea of the names and cities and chapters of where they come from, right? So I found that Asa Hilliard was in the Boulé Atlanta chapter. And I was like, whoa. Asa Hilliard? African historian Asa Hilliard is in the Boulé? No, that can't be. No. That can't be. No. So I was in denial. But I was like, it says this right here. So I was going at the time to a weekly talk in New York, in Harlem, and then in Brooklyn, UAM, United African Movement, by attorney Automatics. And he's had me there several times to speak on the Boulé and other topics. And he also had Coakley there. He had all the major heavy hitters. And Asa Hilliard has come several times. So as soon as I found out about this, shortly after, Asa Hilliard was coming back to New York. And I'm like, word, I'm going to go and see him. And I'm going to ask him directly. I'm going to have a confrontation with Asa Hilliard. Not a conference. Well, no. I'm going to confront him and then see what he says. Because I'm convinced he's already in. Because I had, at the time, talked to Coakley and he confirmed. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and just ask him. But I'm not going to ask him one-on-one. I'm going to do it in front of people so that people can so he can be forced to respond. Because most Boulé members will not. They won't acknowledge it, right? So I confronted him twice. The first time at UAM, I think some of the security had got wind of what I was going to do because they knew I was there. They knew what I wrote about. They knew I wrote about the Boulé. And I came every week. So it wasn't like, oh, and Boybe's here. Nah, but they knew I was there every week. And they knew that Ace was coming. So they're like, oh, okay, something might go down. So the first time I tried to confront him, I got stopped by security. And I'm like, really? Like, they never stopped anybody before. I've never seen them do that, but they actually it's like, brother, just come with us. Just come with us. I'm like, oh man, really? I just want to ask him a question. And like, no, just come with us. So that confrontation didn't happen. He came back, I think, another 4 or 5 months later. And I was like, I got to find a way to get to him no matter what it takes. So he's done his lecture, and I stood back and waited because usually when a lecture is done, people get to walk up to him and he'll sign books and shake hands and ask questions and answer questions and whatnot. So I waited a little bit and I'm sitting back far enough that security kind of stopped watching me. And so right when I thought I was in the clear, I'll beeline towards him, walk right up to him, kind of like juxtapose my position in there, kind of bogarted because people I think they knew what I was there for. And so I immediately took my hand out, grabbed his hand, put my hand out for him to shake. He shook my hand, and I grabbed my other hand to hold on to it. And I said, oh, peace, brother. Thank you for the talk. Are you in the Boulé? And he kind of as soon as he said it, he kind of stirred a little bit, and he kind of shook, and he kind of was trying to pull away from me. And I held on to his hand. It wasn't a big struggle at all. It was very, you couldn't really see it unless you were watching. But he kind of was like trying to jerk back. And he's like, and he saw I wasn't letting go. And I was like, yeah, I just wanted to know because I've read about and I heard you're the Atlanta chapter, blah, blah, blah. And so people are watching. And he says, yeah. This is just an organization that, I don't attend all their meetings. I just attend their dinners and banquets. And I'm like, bruh, are you sure you're not, I just want to understand why would you be affiliated with an organization that's, taken from Skull and Bones? He's like, well, I don't know any of that. And if any of that is true, then good power to you, but I don't know anything about it. So he denied his involvement. He didn't deny his membership, but he had denied how much he was involved. Now I know, and as I mentioned, every May they have to read their history books. So I know that he knew, but he wasn't going to divulge any of that information. So at that point, I realized that, okay, I'm not going to get anywhere with that. And so that was 2000, I believe, 6. And he unfortunately transitioned in 2007. It took a long time for me to come back around to my thoughts about him. When I started writing the Boulé book in 2017, that was when I found out about what he did, the gesture he did for George G.M. James in resurrecting the book in 1977. So the kudo points came back, you know what I mean? But I still feel like, although he transitioned before his time, we never knew how involved he was. he was still in the Boulé nonetheless. There's things that he knew that he didn't divulge, and that made me feel like, wow, he really rolled the fence, because he was this African-centered historian, this giant. If you've read any of his books, powerful intellectual brother, but then to also be part of the Boulé, who is the organization who is controlling the progress of our people. I felt like that was a conflict, and I really couldn't understand how a person of that caliber could be part of that. And I still don't understand that, but it is what it is. He's transitioned. Sister Nefa says, I got it worse because I was from New York. I was dark skinned and I was small. My pops pledged at the school. I pledged at the same school as my younger brother. I didn't want to get brands at first, but then my mother told me that I couldn't come back to in-house without one. She said, I acted like I was too good to do what other members have done. I did meet some good brothers, but because of how me and my brother was raised, we came to the same conclusion a couple of years afterwards. And exactly, bro. I'm sorry. And I was saying, sister, earlier, my bad. Yeah, it is hard, the pledge process, and people get bullied into becoming fraternities. They call them legacies. If you're in a fraternity and you have a child, they're supposed to be in the same fraternity. And some of them do that out of pressure. That does happen. Brother Gerard says, whoa, somebody sent you their history book in roster. Yeah, someone did. I think they were from Indianapolis, of all places, too. It just came out of nowhere. They didn't even have a name. It just was there. And I was like, wow, this is godsend. And I immediately went to publishing it, putting it out there so people could know. So again, it's still online today. If you want to do it, I'll check it out. So again, let me get ready to close out. I got a couple more slides I want to get into. You know what I'm going to do? Because I can get into the, I'm going to lead us up to the chat. Do you all want me to get into the shields, or do you want to hold that and do that for a part 3? Because this is WTF ways to freedom. So we're gonna always be talking about stuff like this. So I can revisit this, and next time I can actually go into the Panhellenic Council and get into the shields for the sake of time, because we've already been in. This is the longest show I've done so far, 2 hours and 43 minutes, and I'm ever so grateful for you all to still be online. So if you could put in the chat, if you want me to continue to go, I will. But if you want me to go ahead and thumbtack this and put this in for part 3, which I will gladly do. We might even try to do it before the end of the month, because again, this is May and this is Boulé History Month. We may do that, or we may do it shortly after, but I won't keep you hanging too long. I'm told, I'm getting here. I think you should do a part 3, because it is a lot to unpack. And I'm under the guise too, because it is approaching the 12 o'clock hour, and I know I've hit you with a whole bunch of info. So I'm getting a couple other people saying, maybe we should postpone that, because I know it's a lot of information. So that's what I'm going to do, y'all. Let me pause it from here and just say that I hope from what you've heard tonight has been, if you didn't know, you are knowing now. Give thanks, Bidmar, enjoying this, give thanks. And that if you are feeling like you've learned something, I really appreciate that, because that was my whole goal and intention, is to share this with you, because it isn't too often that you get to talk to people about decisions you've made and how the impact it has on the world, and more importantly, these organizations that are out here that's supposed to be for us, and their actual role, their actual persons that they answer to, the people that we think that are supposed to be for us, are actually helping the people against us. And that's the real unfortunate thing about this whole thing, is that, even in 2024, our blackest of organizations aren't really for Black people. They're still being puppeteered by global white dependents who need to make sure that we are under this type of mindset, because we are a threat to their constant ability to maintain the power that they've taken from us. It's 2024, y'all, and we need to start to be more accountable of who we are as a person, as a family, as a collective. And if that means that we need to re-identify who we are, stripping us down from everything. I mean, question everything. Question your bloodlines, rituals, if you're part of a tribe, check them out. If you have a religion, check that religion out. If you're part of any organization, check out that organization to make sure that it's truly for you, that they don't have anything against Black people, because when you find that they are, you have to make a decision. And a lot of us don't want to make that decision. I've been talking about the Boulé for nearly 30 years. No, yeah, nearly 30 years, 28 years. And I would have thought there would have been more people that would have gotten out of fraternities because of what they learned than just not getting out because they didn't want to pay the dues. They still wear the letters. They'll still show up at a football game and, you know, do a step show or whatever. But because it's old school days and, you know, they want to relive what they used to do when they were in college. But in all actuality, we're living a facade. And that's the thing that I wish that we would get to is truly who are we and what representation and examples are we setting for the children after us? So again, giving thanks for all for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate you all tuning in and staying tuned in with me tonight. Salute to you, Warrior, and your mission. Giving thanks, Brother Kwame. I really give thanks for you and all your support. Years of support. Giving thanks. Salute to you, brother. So we were supposed to do 3 episodes this week. We had the hiccup yesterday, so we did it today. So we got 2 episodes in this week. Next week we have 3 episodes starting on Tuesday. I will be posting online through our YouTube channel the 3 episodes for next week. I'm hoping again you take something from this. I'm hoping that if anything inspires you to do more diligence, please don't take what I'm saying as gospel. Please do your research and decide if it sits with you or not. And if you do have anything that you want to come back with me, I do welcome that because I don't know everything and I'm looking to learn as we still go. So I appreciate the fact that this is a topic that will be continued to be discussed. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. I have one more thing I want to close out, 2 more things I want to close out with, and then we're going to close it down. Here we go.
This summer, unlock your potential with our summer workshop. Join our dynamic online courses, designed for everyone aged 13 to 75, starting June 1st through August 3rd with Mbwe Shangi of the Crypto Woke Financial Sustainability Movement. Dive into financial education for adults or gear up for success with financial education for student athletes. Teens and young adults can build their financial future, and everyone can explore the wonders of STEAM. For just $149.99, you get access and can invite 3 friends or family members to join you or choose their own course. That's for people for one low price. Workshops start June 1st and run through August 3rd. Sign up now and invest in your future.
Word. So I give thanks for everyone tuning in. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. Stay positive. Understand that we got this. Our ancestors said so. And that's what it's going to be. Ashe. Oh, bless up.